Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching what if Naruto received Nagato's power after Pain Invasion. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The Grand Elder of Myobokuzen looked into the crystal ball in his hands and said, "So these are the children of prophecy." Sitting opposite the elder, Chief Toad Gamabunta also observed the Jiraiya students alter the course of history. He concentrated on his blonde-haired summoner, ignoring the aching and bothersome wounds from his most recent battle. Who would have thought that Jiraiya's one little book could possibly save the world in the hands of that brat no less? He said, laughing abruptly at the ridiculousness of it all. "Looks like they're not done surprising us yet," said the elder sage, whose eyes widened abruptly. "I will believe in you, Naruto Uzumaki," stated Nagato. "I can undo some of the damage I've done, but I need your help." "My assistance?" asked a startled Naruto. "There's not much time to explain," Nagato said. "Coughing and spitting blood from the corner of his mouth. Put your hand on my chest, and everything will make sense to you." Naruto muttered, "Man, you look like you've seen better days," as he approached Nagato and saw the full extent of his physical weakness. "You can say that again," Nagato said, coughing and laughing. "Well, what a drag." Smirking, Naruto said, "Now you sound like Shikamaru." "I've studied your exploits," Nagato said with a smile. "For you, converting an adversary into a friend is just another workday. You really are unique. You possess immense power. But if you want to fulfill Jiraiya-sensei's dream, you'll need even more. I want you to join forces with me." "Are you with me tonight?" With a blank expression, Naruto answered. This one even confused Konan. Nagato clarified, "Like you, I am a descendant of the Uzumaki. Our clan has great power in our unique chakra. That's what made it possible for me to have the Rinnegan and for you to become a container for the Kyuubi. Though it's not much, I would like to join you and combine our chakras. I've got one grumpy resident already, one more won't hurt." Naruto grinned. Nagato smiled and said, "Good." With his hand on his chest, Naruto grunted, "Fair warning, if I don't like this, you're rooming with the fox. This ain't no vacation either. Like the fox, you will pay rent. Have you got that?" Nagato chuckled. "Hey, you're too much. You'll be fighting to keep me around once you taste this, so don't worry." Konan objected to the direction this was taking, saying, "No, Nagato, don't go, please. Konan, I'm running out of time. In any case, I can change things and maintain hope in this way. The time is right, so there's nothing to be concerned about." She begged, "No, please, I thank you for all you've done, my friend," he said, slowly getting to his feet after giving her one last smile. As Nagato closed his eyes and a look of calm that she hadn't seen in years appeared on his face, tears streamed down her eyes. "I'll watch out for her, so don't worry," Naruto whispered to Nagato. "It's the least I can do." The weak man screamed as his body transformed into nothing but energy, and Naruto was amazed at the amount of chakra he was releasing despite being on his last legs. Nagato gave him a smile before his body was enveloped in a white aura. "This is amazing," the blonde thought as Nagato's aura emitted a bright white flash. Konan was suddenly blinded. Once she was able to see again, she saw that there was only one Uzumaki, instead of the two that had previously stood. Naruto's body had changed slightly. He appeared to be a few inches taller, and his frame had gained some muscle. His spiky blonde hair had grown longer and now had a few red streaks. He looked down at his hands in wonder, and when he turned to face Konan, she was astounded by the sight of his eyes, which were a hybrid of his own Sage Mode and the Rinnegan, keeping the shape and style of Sage Mode while adding the light purple coloring and ripple-like pattern. Astonishment soon gave way to seriousness as Naruto abruptly displayed a number of hand signals before declaring, "Geto. Rinne Tensai no Jutsu. Outer Path. Heavenly Life Samsara Technique." As the outer path suddenly materialized on the ground, standing at a great height, there was a big puff of smoke in the middle of the battlefield that had once been the village of Konoha. Its mouth opened as wide as it could, and green tendrils of energy suddenly rushed forward, touching corpses all over the village. "What's happening? Did Naruto somehow lose?" Shikamaru muttered, his face troubled. "I don't think that's it," Ino said, continuing to stare at Shizun's body. "Something else is taking place." In his typical monotone, Shino said, "This chakra, it feels like Naruto's chakra." The return of their fallen comrades to the world of the living left the survivors in a state of shock throughout the village. Inoichi muttered, "Naruto somehow, he's bringing them back. How is that even possible?" Shikaku looked at him in disbelief. "Fukasaku was dead. I'm sure of it. How can he be getting up? What the hell is going on?" Sakura watched him come back to life, completely unaware of what was happening. "Where am I?" As he sat up, the elderly Toad muttered. When he came back to life, Ma screamed in shock. Naruto grinned and his eyes returned to their typical blues as he said, "This is amazing. All of the people who were killed in the battle have been brought back to life. This is unlike anything I've ever experienced. Everything feels like me, including my body and mind, hee." As she exposed them to the outside world and allowed the hiding place they were in to turn back to paper, Conan gazed at him in wonder. With his sage coat fluttering behind him, Naruto gazed up at the sky and said, "I'm awake. At last, I'm completely awake. Indeed, hee." With his hands spread wide, the blonde floated slowly into the air as he laughed. As she watched him in wonder, Conan thought, he really has inherited Nagato's abilities. This must be the manifestation of the gravity manipulation of the Diva Path. "Nagato, goodbye. Please be careful, I'll miss you," she muttered. With a smile on his face, Naruto turned back to her and said, "This isn't goodbye, more like, see you later." After a puff of smoke, a tiny scroll materialized in his hand. "I hope you're finished with the Akatsuki, as that could lead to some issues," he said. "Use this if something should come up." As she took the scroll, Conan bowed and said, "Thank you for everything," for restoring his dream to him. Naruto waved to her one last time before he took off across the treetops, saying, "I must go now till next time, old friend." As Conan picked up Yahiko's body and went back to aim, a genuine smile appeared on her face for the first time in a long time. Expecting to have to carry his weary pupil back to the village, Kakashi had been jumping through the forest in Naruto's direction when he abruptly stopped in disbelief. "Whoa!" Kakashi yelled as Naruto sped by him above him. The blonde smiled at his sensei as he casually said, "Welcome back, sensei." Naruto stopped in midair and turned to face him. Kakashi gave him an eye smile and said, "Naruto, it's good to be back. I'm glad to be back. It appears that you learned some new skills during my absence." As he descended to the tree branch Kakashi was standing on, Naruto shrugged and said, "More or less." Kakashi ruffled his hair and said, "Good to see it hasn't all gone to your head." Batting his hand away, Naruto pouted and said, "I'm not a little brat anymore, sensei." Kakashi's tone abruptly became solemn. "Naruto." At his tone, the blonde also became serious. Kakashi's eye grinned once more and praised him, saying, "Well done." As they began to return to the village, Naruto grinned and gave him a pat on the back as they emerged from the forest. Naruto was astounded by the number of people who had gathered and were waiting for him. With his jacket open, the tiny Katsuyu exclaimed, "I told everyone the gist of what happened." "Naruto, you succeeded," a kunoichi yelled. "Naruto, welcome home," a civilian girl said. "You are a hero," a shinobi cheered. "We had faith in you," applauded a group of ninja. "Thank you, Naruto," a group of civilians cheered. Kakashi turned to face his pupil and saw that the blonde was trembling before he could reassure him while he sobbed with happiness. The blonde jumped high into the air and exclaimed, "Hell yeah! I'm back, sweetie. Better than before." They cheered the blonde as he circled around overhead with his fist held high, and to their astonishment, he pumped his fist and took off into the air above the crowd. "Naruto! Naruto! Naruto! Naruto!" As he performed a few airborne tricks, the audience chanted. "This is the number butt kickin' shinobi. Good luck if you're looking to acquire a piece of Konoha. Because I'm not getting through to you," Naruto yelled. The crowd let out another roar in response. "Hell yeah." When Sakura slowly approached him, everyone seemed to pause to see what she was going to do, and as she stopped in front of him, Kiba pulled Akamaru back from slobbering all over his face. The blonde, satisfied with getting his air theatrix out of his system, landed and was surrounded by his friends. After giving him a quick pat on the back of the head and muttering something about being too careless, she gathered him in an embrace and muttered, "Thank you." A faulty assumption in his report would soon cost the meddling old man dearly, and Madara's eyes and ears on the battlefield searched the forests for a way to retreat. "I didn't think Pain would lose," as he disappeared into a tree branch in the forest beyond the village. The white half of Zetsu muttered, "Time to get out of here." The village leaders had already returned to their duties as the short celebration in the center of the destroyed village began to come to an end, with the Fire Lord meeting with the Jonin commander Shikaku, the village council of elders, and other officials to decide the village's course after the crisis. "We plan to continue working with the other countries towards eliminating the threat posed by the Akatsuki," stated Elder Himura. "The Land of Fire will do everything in our power to rebuild the village after what has happened to it," the Fire Lord's treasurer said. "First, we must create a budget and take into account the burden the expense will place on other nations." Danzo interrupted, saying, "We need to think about something else first. Who will be the next Hokage? Did Tsunade make it through? Can't we wait for her to get better?" the Fire Lord inquired. She remains in a coma, my Lord Elder Kaharu stated. We cannot decide on a plan for the village while she is still incapacitated for an unknown period of time. The Fire Lord said, Jiraiya was one of my favorites, but he is gone now. He then sighed, who else qualifies? Shikaku interrupted Danzo as he started to say, well, Kakashi Hitaki is my nominee, the Jonin commander declared. The suggestion caused the Fire Lord's eyes to light up, saying, oh ho, the White Fang's son, huh? I enjoy it, what do you all think? He asked his advisors. He's well known and powerful, he's young though. Minato was appointed at a younger age, who taught him? The fourth Hokage taught him, Himura retorted. He also teaches young Naruto, who saved the village. Very good lineage there, said the Fire Lord, nodding. Jiraiya instructed Naruto, and the fourth Jiraiya and the fifth Hokage were taught by the third Hokage. There are no issues there. Danzo got up and said, this village has been practically destroyed by the teachings of the third Hokage. Jiraiya used to teach the man who destroyed the village today. This is the outcome of granting other nations power and showing sympathy for them. Thinking like that is weak. It resulted in Orochimaru's scheme to destroy Konoha and Sans betrayal. As a result, the final Uchiha left our village to pursue his own vengeance. Now, what sort of Hokage are we going to need? We require. A female voice cut in, I think I will suffice just fine. With a start, they all turned to see Tsunade walking into the tent. Lady Tsunade. We were informed that you were in a coma, the Fire Lord said in shock. Until that village savior of ours performed yet another miracle, I feel like I just went back 20 years after he gave me a transfusion of his own chakra, Tsunade exclaimed. Flashback: the blonde had taken his sensei aside and told him the truth about what actually happened at the end of the battle. So Naruto and Kakashi went into Tsunade's tent where Shizune and Sakura were caring for her, thinking it would be best to consult Tsunade. They went to her tent to check on her. The blonde-haired Hokage had clearly seen better days, and her actual age was clearly visible as she lay unconscious on the futon that Shizune had set up. How is she doing? Kakashi inquired. To save the villagers, she gave Katsuyu a lot of her chakra. This is how she's been unconscious ever since. Sakura answered. I'm not sure when she'll wake up. A concerned Shizune added. I think she forgets how old she is sometimes. Naruto whispered. I think I can help her. Only Kakashi heard him. Really? The privileged Jonin murmured after Naruto nodded slightly in Sakura's direction. Kakashi quietly warned Shizune to leave. I've got her covered. Sakura, how about you visit the main medical tent to check on the situation? The dark-haired medic suggested. In agreement, Sakura nodded, saying she wouldn't want things bogged down on her account. After the pink-haired medic had left, Kakashi called for the Anbu guards to set up a tent so that nobody would interrupt the proceedings. This remains between everyone in this room until Tsunade decides otherwise. Once she awakes, Kakashi told Tsunade. Shizune gasped in surprise when Naruto opened his eyes after briefly closing them. His blue eyes had been replaced by his Sage Rinnegan hybrid. How? She stumbled as he reached inside his cloak and produced a black chakra rod that Kakashi recognized from his fight with Pain. Naruto responded, there's no time to explain now. I can use this to give her a little of my own chakra, Naruto said. It should raise her own levels to a point where she can emerge from this coma. Shizune helped him insert the rod at a major chakra point in Tsunade's right arm. Naruto grabbed the other end of the rod for an even higher level of conduction, and as the process proceeded, he noticed that Tsunade's body began to pull on his chakra instead of him simply pouring it into her. Her pull soon became so strong that he was unable to break the connection, and he began to breathe heavily as Tsunade ended up taking much more chakra than he had intended. The reason for this quickly became clear when the seal on his forehead reformed, and Naruto released the chakra rod, almost falling to the ground before Kakashi caught him. Naruto complained, "Geez, you're one greedy old hag," as he fainted. Tsunade's eyes popped open as soon as he did, and she sat up alert, energized, and utterly bewildered. Flashback end. Well, Danzo, it appears you were mistaken. This village has repeatedly been saved, including today, by the teachings of the third Hokage. It even restored our Hokage to full health, Shikaku smirked and said. With Tsunade's resuscitation nullifying all of his present plans, Danzo scowled but remained silent. Very well, this discussion is now over with Tsunade back in fine form. The Fire Lord nodded. Please give my regards to Jiraiya's newest student. Maybe in the future you'll be able to retire and leave the village in his capable hands, but I'll be curious to see where he goes from here. I haven't even given him his field promotion yet, and he already has the Fire Lord's recommendation for my seat, Tsunade said with a cunning smile. The few top-tier agents who were left gathered in the Gedo Mazo's hideout to determine their next course of action. So, Pain was defeated by Naruto? Asked Madara with Zetsu nodding in response. To be honest, I'm a little taken aback. Although I was aware that this outcome was unlikely, I didn't really anticipate it happening. The Hokage, what about him? The identity of the person is still up for debate, Zetsu replied. Danzo will probably take over the position if Tsunade doesn't wake up and hold it. The idea of that happening made Madara's eye light up. It would be ideal for his plans. Konan is not returning. I'll deal with her when the time comes, he said to align with Gedo Mazo. We also require an additional pawn. After pausing briefly to consider his next course of action, Madara turned to Kisame and said, Kisame, you go after the eight-tailed beast that Sasuke failed to retrieve. I must go in search of him before he skulls my scheme. Zetsu, you keep an eye on Konoha's developments and verify who was elected Hokage. When you're finished, come find me. The time for sitting back in the shadows had ended. When Madara first learned that the 5-Cage Summit was being held in the Land of Iron, he was only concerned about the 5 major countries imposing sanctions and other insignificant but annoying interventions against Akatsuki. This would not be an issue for him, as the last stages of his plans only required the capture of the 2 Biju that were still outside his control. Naruto's elimination of his greatest aces made it even more imperative that he get to him now, before he became an even bigger thorn in his side. Kisami's footsteps as he left the hiding place where the Gedo Mazo was kept. What will you do at this point? Zetsu inquired. As a spiral contortion appeared before him, time and space twisted to suit his wishes, and he disappeared into another location across the vast world. The masked man responded, initiate the start of something spectacular. With Tsunade back on the road, things in Konoha returned to somewhat normalcy, and thanks to Yamato's Mokuton abilities and Naruto's Cage Bunshin manpower, several areas were well on their way to being rebuilt. On the advice of Naruto and Kakashi, Tsunade had called in the help of their old client Tazuna, who brought along Inari, a boy who had somewhat followed in his grandfather's footsteps by becoming a carpenter. Although the village was reduced to rubble, Tsunade found herself with even more paperwork than usual in her tent. At first, she assumed she only needed to approve Naruto's field promotion to Special Jonin because of his newfound expertise in Senjutsu, so as to appease the elders by assigning him as a subordinate under Kakashi. Naruto was simply relieved to no longer be a genin. Where does everything originate? As she completed another stack, she complained. It seems like paperwork was the only thing that made it through the attack. Tsunade-sama, Shizune said, sticking her head inside the tent. Then Tsunade moaned, not another pile. In fact, a group of Kumo shinobi have asked to speak with you. Tsunade said. They have a message from the Raikage. It's better than more paperwork, at least, bring them in, Tsunade said. The blonde short-haired woman with a chest that rivaled her own stepped forward as the group's leader, and Shizune ducked back out before coming back with 3 shinobi and leaving again. I'm Samui and these are my teammates, Karui and Omoi. When she introduced herself, they all bowed respectfully. Karui, a dark-skinned kunoichi dressed in traditional Kumo shinobi garb, stood to Samui's right, her headband tied into a bandana that covered the top of her long mane of red hair cascading down her back. Omoi, a dark-skinned man, stood to her left. He had short, spiky white hair and black eyes, and his slack posture while sucking on a lollipop could have rivaled Kakashi. Samui stepped forward and gave the letter to Tsunade, saying, "We have a letter from the Raikage." A loud commotion from outside the tent interrupted them before she could even start reading it, and Tsunade's eye twitched when she heard a voice she recognized arguing with Shizune. Shizune said firmly, "Tsunade-sama is busy with a meeting right now. This will only take a minute, so I don't care." As he exploded into the tent, Naruto snarled, "Yo Tsunade-ba-chan. I need her permission to go back to Myobokuzen and for a few other things. I need your consent too." He saw Samui and Tsunade standing so close to each other that he glanced back and forth between them several times before narrowing his eyes at Tsunade and pointing an accusing finger, then decided against it and skipped whatever he was about to say. The blonde froze when he saw the Kumo contingent give him strange looks and Tsunade one that promised imminent pain. "I don't feel like having to rebuild whatever it is you were going to punch me through if I continued with that train of thought," the blonde said simply as he stepped aside. "Continue, I'll wait." Tsunade returned to reading the letter and said, "Special Jonin, Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke Uchiha has joined Akatsuki, attacked Kumo, and abducted the Raikage's brother, Killer B. After all this is exactly what I need to deal with." Tsunade watched Naruto's reaction out of the corner of her eye and was a little taken aback to see that his only reaction was to narrow his eyes. She continued reading, attributing the lack of an emotional outburst to his recent changes. "Naruto, who had been unified with Nagato and knew a lot about Sasuke's activities before Nagato left for Konoha, thought, "I can't believe the bastard actually pulled it off. He shouldn't have been able to win that battle." His recent experiences, meeting with Itachi, and upgrade had drastically changed Naruto's perspective on his former teammate. In reference to B, Samui added, "He is also our sensei." Naruto thought, "That explains why you three delivered the message. Your sensei is a host." "Yeah," Karui said, raising an eyebrow, "how did you know?" "The tailed beasts are the target of the Akatsuki. Your sensei is probably still alive because the extraction process takes time, particularly after the battle here. When they lost two important members, it will likely be even more challenging for them to carry out the extraction because he is the host of the Eight Tails," Naruto explained. "How were you aware that he was the Eight Tails host?" Omoi inquired. "They've been going in order, and if you count him, there are only two of us left." Naruto grinned. "They would have the entire set if I hadn't kicked the ass of the person who destroyed our village." The three Kumo nins' faces lit up with shock when they realized they were speaking to the person who had defeated the Akatsuki leader in addition to the host of the Kyuubi. "This guy is our age, and he's that strong," Samui thought. "Normally, I would take more time to deliberate over this issue, but with the state of affairs in both our villages, I have no choice but to declare Sasuke Uchiha an S-class criminal and missing nin," Tsunade said, drawing their attention back to herself. "If capture is not an option, you are permitted to hunt and end on the spot." Samui bowed and said, "Thank you. You have nothing to say?" Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow at Naruto, who had been silent and had his eyes lowered to the ground. "I just sentenced your former teammate to death." The three Kumo shinobi were taken aback by this. Sasuke is not a simple rogue who ran off to avenge his clan any longer. He must take responsibility for his actions, Naruto said, looking up at her with a composed, determined expression. "Everyone in our village would suffer if we didn't take action against him, and if he keeps committing crimes, it would anger other nations. The Raikage has a lot of nerve asking for a meeting of the 5 Kages after rejecting my previous requests for assistance in dealing with the Akatsuki. I'd like to give that fool a piece of my fist," Tsunade said, taking his mature response in stride as she proceeded to the next request on the list. When the three shinobi realized the importance of their leader's hasty actions, they went pale. A stunned Samui wondered, why did Raikage-sama refuse to assist against Akatsuki? B-sensei might never have been captured. "The meeting of the 5 Kages is a great idea," Tsunade said, "but I guess I'll have to settle for giving him a piece of my mind, face to face instead. While we've been working tirelessly to eradicate the Akatsuki threat, I'm curious about what the other Kages have been up to. The better have excellent justifications." "Fat chance of that," sneered Naruto before joining the group. "Sasuke did more to harm it than all 3 of the other villages combined." Tsunade told them, "You 3 can have access to our records on Sasuke Uchiha." "What can you tell us about him, as you are his teammate?" Karui inquired. "I haven't really fought the guy since he left the village 3 years ago," Naruto shrugged. "Everything I know about him should be in the records department, which has more information about him than I do. However, there is one thing you should be aware of." He continued, "He's an arrogant bastard with a stick the height of the Hokage monument shoved up his ass," to the attentive attention of the 3 foreigners. Karui and Omoi face vaulted, Samui and Tsunade perspired, and Naruto laughed heartily at their responses. "At least he doesn't rap everything he says," Samui thought. "This guy is just as crazy as B-sensei." Tsunade was left alone with Naruto after the 3 shinobi thanked them for their help and proceeded to the records department to obtain information about Sasuke. "Can I then return to Myobokuzen?" Naruto inquired. "It won't last long, a couple of days to figure out some new things." Tsunade replied, "Not for too long is good. With the meeting of the 5 Kages, I need to have you either with me at the meeting or as a deterrent in the village. You do realize that once Akatsuki hear about this meeting going down, they won't be able to pass up the opportunity," said Naruto. She saw the sly smile that usually appeared on his face when he was preparing a huge prank and said, "The 5 Kages will be there with elite guards. I'm sure we can handle." "What are you really getting at?" "Like I said, before they're definitely going to crash the meeting," Naruto said, his smile widening even more. "I would like to discuss some ideas with you. Let's begin with this. What message would you like to convey with your own unique group of party crashers?" "Go on," Tsunade says with a curious expression on her face. X at a rendezvous that Naruto had set up, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Sakura, Lee, Neji, Kiba, Shino, Guy, Yamato, and Kakashi had waited for the blonde to arrive with Sai so that he could make whatever announcement he had for his peers. "I wonder what the big secret is they're making him Hokage, do you think?" Kiba joked. Ino grumbled, If they'd made that loudmouth the Hokage, we'd have all heard it the moment it happened. Yes. Lee nodded in agreement. In such a situation, Naruto's youthful fervor would have undoubtedly reverberated throughout the entire village. There were far too many warning signs. Something troublesome is about to happen, and Shikamaru stayed silent, wondering how Kumo Shinobi being sighting in the village and meeting with the Hokage could be related, and why they needed to hear whatever announcement Naruto felt was so important. Sakura, who hadn't seen much of her teammate since the day he roused Tsunade from her coma, was more concerned with the shroud of secrecy that somehow now shrouded him since the battle. Shino casually remarked in his typical monotone, "Maybe the finally rebuilt Ichiraku's and he wants to treat everyone to ramen." Everyone around him burst out laughing, and the bug user's only sign of amusement was to adjust his glasses. With a shoulder pat, Kiba said, "You sure do make them count. As if I would give Ichiraku's to you ungrateful heathens after it opened on their grand reopening. I'm purchasing the entire stand for myself and me alone. My time is limited." Naruto and Sai jumped down and said, "I'll make this quick because I'm going back to train with the Toads for a little while." Shikamaru complained, "Well, then get on with you, it troublesome blonde." After a brief pause during which his expression became solemn, Naruto said bluntly, "I won't mince words on this one. I wanted to let everyone know that Sasuke has been labeled an S-class criminal by Tsunade." He then shocked everyone by saying, "I agree with her decision." This sparked a range of reactions, including gasps of shock and denial, nods of agreement, and a few complaints of, "About time." Shikamaru asked the crucial question before everyone could lose it, "What's changed?" "Shika, a lot of things. The Raikage's brother, the host of the eight-tailed beast, was taken prisoner by Sasuke after he attacked Kumo. This is the main alteration." Naruto clarified, "He has joined the Akatsuki." When he revealed the true meaning of his words, Sakura paled in horror. "That idiot." Kiba growled. Ino started to say, but he couldn't have, but Kakashi cleared his throat to stop her and any further responses. Interjecting, "Please let him finish." Before launching into a lengthy tirade, Naruto gave him a small nod of gratitude and said, "We could justify Sasuke's departure before this. All of his actions were directed toward the same goal, to defeat his brother. He has now been assigned to a criminal organization whose sole goal is to find individuals just like me. Now, I'm asking you, this isn't just a decision between him and me. This is him or the safety and tranquility of people everywhere. We are responsible for every life he takes, every family he destroys, and every child he robs of a parent, brother, or sister if we meet him on the battlefield and let our feelings influence our decisions. Because of Akatsuki's actions, 3 of you have already lost at Sensei. Sasuke did the exact same thing to Kumo's 3 shinobi, so they came here today. We would be selfish if we didn't stand up to him because we lacked the guts to choose the right course of action over the convenient one. His activities are a disgrace to all of us, and they can no longer be justified or explained. It is imperative that Sasuke accepts full responsibility for his actions. We must stand on our own 2 feet. We are no longer children now that we are adults. People look to us for guidance and leadership when the future is on the line. We cannot afford to live in the past." "When did he develop his exceptional speech-making skills?" Yamato whispered to Kakashi. "He's always had that wool of fire mojo," Kakashi said with a smile. "He has it in his blood." Naruto said, "I'm going back to Myobokuzen to tie up some loose ends. This is kind of a big thing to drop and you guys and leave so quickly, but I know that deep down in each and every one of your hearts, you have the conviction to do what is right and protect what is most important. If you would like to discuss this with me, you will have to wait until I return, which should be in a week. I'll see everyone shortly." He gave Sai a nod, and they both turned away. "I'm baffled. After all, weren't they best friends?" Ino muttered. Shikamaru joked, "The key thing you said being were. He is unable to hold back any longer due to ties to past friendships. The stakes are too high. Sometimes sacrifices must be made to protect what is most important," Lee said. "It's really very easy. Finally, Sasuke has taken a step that has put him in a position to force Naruto's hand. There truly isn't a choice if it's between Sasuke or innocent people and those Naruto cares about," Neji continued. "The first lesson I taught the 3 Greenhorn Genin of Team 7 was that he who abandons his comrades is worse than trash," said Kakashi. "Looks like I've got a little cleaning up to do." After a few minutes of extreme silence, Shikamaru perfectly encapsulated everyone's feelings when he said, "Shit is about to get real troublesome." Sasuke severed the ties with the Akatsuki, whose department was paid with the capture of the 8-tailed host. The newly renamed Team Taka had finished their preparations and left their hidden base to travel to Konoha. The group did not only serve his own ambitions, but the beginning of their journey came to an abrupt halt when, In the middle of the forest they were traveling through. A spiral-like pattern appeared in the air. The time-space distortion rippled and spun until Madara appeared wearing his Tobi disguise. Sasuke, what's wrong? Suigetsu inquired. Sasuke remained silent, gazing straight ahead at his ancestor. His arrival caught Karen completely off guard because men don't just appear out of nowhere very often. As though they were getting together for a drink, Madara said, "Hey, Sasuke. How were you aware of my location?" Sasuke joked. "Don't undervalue me," Madara said, tilting his head to the side. "A person with my abilities would find such a task insignificant." "Now what do you want?" scowled Sasuke. "Since we completed our agreement, Taka is no longer a part of Akatsuki and is no longer useful to you." In an irritated tone, the man said, "I said I'd have to kill you if you betray Akatsuki and you failed to hold up your end of the bargain." His Sharingan eyes were narrowed at him. With a perplexed expression, Sasuke asked, "What are you talking about?" Madara retorted, "You failed to capture the eight-tailed beast, Sasuke." "Yes, we did catch it. You got it from us," Karen cried out. Madara just silently gazed at them, which annoyed Jugo and Suigetsu. "It wasn't real. It was just a clone. It appears that the experience's host was able to deceive you. I'm wondering if I made a mistake in using such amateurs as yourselves," he said in a dissatisfied tone, adding, "I expected better. This is totally unacceptable." Sasuke's attention to detail had cost him, and it finally clicked when he remembered that the tentacle he had severed during the battle with the eight tails could have contained Killer Bee. "What do you want us to do about it?" asked Suigetsu, who was not impressed. "Since we fulfilled your end of the agreement, you now handle it on your own. It is no longer our concern." "No," Madara said, dismissing his outburst. "I still owe you as part of Akatsuki. You will complete your final task. I sent someone to catch the eight tails. So forget about him. I have another task for you all to complete." "What if I said no?" Sasuke asked, crouching in attack position. "Then I won't let you get to Konoha," Madara said, his tone returning to its casual one. "I'm too strong for you." As the Chidori came to life, lightning burst around Sasuke's hand. "I'll push my way through." With his hand already extended toward Madara's chest, Sasuke quickly closed the distance between them, but as soon as it appeared that he had pounded the attack into Madara's chest, he found himself phasing straight through him. Madara casually stated, "It's a little too late to go to Konoha now. Ignoring the attack, your objective is now pointless. I'm sorry for you. There is no longer Konohagakure. The village was destroyed by my minion, Pain." Sasuke's hand shot down towards Kusanagi as he was about to slit Madara's throat, but he stopped when a green plant with jagged patterns in the middle rose up from the branch Madara was standing on. He was shocked to learn that someone had stolen his ambition, and he could feel his rage and malice rising inside him like tides smashing against the shore. "Who the devil is this individual?" With a suspicious Suigetsu reaching for his blade, he asked. Madara turned to Zetsu and said, "Calm down, he's with me." "So who's the new Hokage?" Zetsu reported that it appeared that Tsunade's condition was improving more quickly than anticipated, and they were going to wait for her. At first, it seemed as if Danzo was going to become Hokage, but then something else happened. "But it seems to me that Danzo is more involved in this. He is the Hokage, but he is using misdirection with this Tsunade stuff to keep the target off his back." Madara had been looking at Sasuke, waiting for his response, and he was not let down. He could feel Sasuke's growing desire to kill, and he grinned beneath his mask. Madara muttered, "I figured this would happen." "So, the Hokage is Danzo?" asked Sasuke to elaborate. "At this stage, it's just conjecture." Madara shrugged. "With Jiraiya out of the picture, Tsunade is the most likely candidate to take charge of the situation if she is able to return to her duties. He is also in charge of forcing your brother to carry out his scheme. Do you know what his prize is?" "He is the Hokage." With his right hand clenched around Kusanagi, Sasuke's chakra flared. Madara stirred the pot further after it had been brought to a boil, saying, "The 5 cages had started to move because you and Pain have caused so much trouble. A meeting is about to take place." Sasuke said nothing in response to this information. "You see, Pain took it upon himself to capture the 9-tailed host and we let him," Zetsu said, continuing where Madara had left off. "Remember, Pain was most likely our strongest member. He defeated Salamander Hanzo and took over Omegakure. He is capable of using jutsu to defeat a whole village." "Yes, he most likely wouldn't have any trouble kicking your asses," Zetsu's black half added. "However, Pain terrorized the village and largely destroyed it when he invaded Konoha. Konoha is now in ruins after he destroyed many of their forces, but one individual, who arrived late for the fight, defeated Pain," Zetsu added. He knew only one person in Konoha who would appear at the last minute and pull a victory out of his ass, and Sasuke knew instantly who it was. The nine-tailed host, Uzumaki Naruto, defeated him. He's definitely capable of kicking your ass. He's entertaining, but we must kill him, told Black Zetsu. Suigetsu arched an eyebrow in response, asking, so this Naruto defeated Pain on his own? He must be quite skilled. That's right, he's gotten pretty strong. He's definitely stronger than Sasuke, laughed Zetsu. It was dismissed by the Uchiha, who said, I don't care about that nonsense, the 5 cages are the problem. After that, Sasuke, what will you do? I take it that Danzo is your target? Konoha is essentially wiped out. Shouldn't we go after Danzo at that meeting if he's attending? Suigetsu proposed. Sasuke was considering it carefully because he couldn't imagine losing the chance to face the 5 cages. Karen, on the other hand, was thinking rationally and couldn't imagine considering the possibility of facing the 5 cages. It was a suicide mission. Sasuke adamantly declared, change of plans, we're going to the meeting to kill the 5 cages. Madara chuckled to himself at Sasuke's folly, thinking, I can't believe this was so easy. He's arrogant and headstrong. Does he actually think he stands a chance against 1 cage, let alone 5? Karen was shocked to learn that they intended to take on the best ninjas from each of the 5 major villages. Defeating all 5 of them in one location would be suicide, even without considering any cage-level bodyguards they might bring. Unfortunately for Karen, Madara supported Sasuke's dim-witted plan in order to further his own goals. Despite her better judgment, Karen followed through even though she didn't like the direction this was taking. So where is this meeting? When Madara motioned for Zetsu to take the lead, he obeyed, and to their horror and surprise, the jagged pattern of the leaf portion of his body split, exposing the entire figure of Zetsu's body divided in black and white. It continued to split, tearing him in 2 halves down the middle. After giving them a moment to collect themselves, the white half of Zetsu led the Taka members to their new target. Jugo and Suigetsu nearly reacted and gagged at the completely repulsive form of Zetsu. Jugo was hesitant to accompany Madara, asking, Sasuke, can we trust them? With a sly smile, Sasuke said, I'll use Amaterasu on him if he tries anything amusing. Let's see what happens. In any event, I want to try something new. Black Zetsu laughed at Sasuke, saying, I can't believe he bought that Danzo is the Hokage bullshit. The Uchiha, accompanied by Madara, reflected on his newfound pain in the ass. Naruto Uzumaki, he is now on his way to have the 5 cages kick his ass. That Naruto child should be one of Tsunade's guards. I hope his head would be severely damaged if you were to beat him up before you could save his ass. He's not very good with plans, has too much tunnel vision. Madara shrugged. If you motivate him properly, he can be a useful tool. The way Nagato used Rinne Tensai still amazes me. What a betrayal. That was meant to be reserved for me. My plans have been thrown off balance by that Uzumaki Naruto. I suppose I must ask the brat what he is actually dealing with. It's time to take charge, Zetsu, and finally communicate to the world our true goals. The Moon's Eye plan is about to be realized. Using Sai as a go-between, Naruto obtained permission to meet with the old Warhawk, and the two of them are currently waiting for him to arrive. This was his final letter or business before leaving for the Toad's home. Naruto whispered, that must have been some hell of team. Sai looked at him curiously. Team? Your boss, Old Man Third, and a few other legends were all under the Nidaim's leadership. Naruto retorted. That's some serious talent packed all into one team. Yes, it was when Danzo and his guard arrived. He added, you new generation shinobi just don't stack up with what we had back then. Yeah, you guys were all elite level at like the age of 10. Naruto grinned. At 10 years old, I could hardly pick my own nose. Why have you sought my modest advice? As he let his guard down, Danzo asked. I know you've got an assorted list of skeletons in your closet, started Naruto. Danzo laughed. Nothing that can be proven, of course, all speculation at best. I also know the old man wouldn't have let you meddle around for so long if you didn't serve a purpose. Naruto continued. You probably have a lot of plans you're trying to enact since you didn't seize the Hokage seat. What do you desire? Danzo asked, getting straight to the point. Danzo's eyes widened as he continued. I have a proposition for you. How would you like to trade up a couple of those Sharingan you're hiding? I assumed you came here in asking for discreet assistance in retrieving your friend, and here you are serving him up to me on a silver platter, said the elderly war veteran with a sly smile after a brief pause. You don't realize that I have different plans for Sasuke. I need your help to recover Uchiha Itachi's body. You can have the eyes and wisdom of Akatsuki's real leader in return, Naruto said. With a raised eyebrow, Danzo said, that's all? Yes, and there should be less interference inside the borders. Naruto hurriedly added, more interference outside our borders to help with this Akatsuki thing. You've changed. Danzo smiled. You are not the kind of person I would have thought to bargain with like me. If you can tell me why you want Uchiha Itachi's body, I'll join this small operation. The sly smile on Naruto's face suggested that a huge practical joke was about to be pulled on someone. Let's just say I'm walking a new path. The blonde took great pleasure in making fun of them after all the torture he had previously endured, and sometimes he would even catch a boulder and chuck it back at them. Gamabunta and Gamakichi, from the wealthy lands of Myobokuzan, were practicing the ancient toad father-son bonding ritual of throwing huge, heavy boulders at their summoners. Unfortunately for them, Naruto's newfound ability to fly made him almost impossible to hit. You know, when he was unable to fly, this was much more enjoyable, Gamakichi complained. At least then we got to smash the shadow clones. You should have seen his father, and he learned that flying thunder god move of his, Bunta said with a hearty laugh. As we threw them, he would mock us by teleporting from one boulder to another. Then, how did you get him? Kichi inquired. Nothing. The chief toad shrugged. I simply resumed throwing things at Jiraiya. The leaders of the 5 major villages all left their homes to begin the journey to the land of iron, and as Tsunade finished putting on her robes and picking up her cage hat, a disgruntled Shikaku entered the tent that served as her office. Frowning, a week went by, swiftly bringing the cage summit to the forefront, and Tsunade smiled as the Nara muttered complaints about his new troublesome responsibilities. What's that long face about? Everyone is under your control. Tsunade was taunted. I don't mean to offend Hokage-sama, but this is the most annoying job ever, he said, rolling his eyes. The only positive aspect of it is that it allows me to leave my home. Oh, don't worry about that. Tsunade smirked and said, I found you the perfect assistant since Shizune is busy running the medical tent. Just as expected, Yoshino rushed into the tent with a pile of documents and exclaimed, You don't have time to stand around, dear. After you finish this stack, you will have to meet with treasury representatives to discuss the budget. There are 4 more stacks after this one. Now move that sluggish butt. Go, go, go. Tsunade laughed all the way out, and the dark-haired Jonin commander's shoulders drooped at the knowledge that he would not be able to avoid the nagging. Seeking some relief from his situation, his thoughts turned to the possibility that his assistant might be able to help him cope with the stress of running the village. As she slapped him across the back of the head, Yoshino seemed to read his thoughts and said, Not until we get home, and that's only if you finish all your work today. Tsunade found Kakashi and Guy waiting for her, ready to go, and they fell into step with her as they made their way to the north gate. I hope both of you are prepared for what might happen at the cage summit, said Tsunade. The gathering of the 5 cages is the type of event not even the Akatsuki can ignore, responded Kakashi. Guy nodded. They have a great opportunity to sabotage the meetings and murder even one cage to instill mistrust in the villages. They do not want to see a united front against their organization. We are prepared to face them and protect the integrity of this meeting at all costs, stated Kakashi. She handed them each a briefing scroll and said, I expect nothing less from the 2 of you. However, certain countermeasures have already been taken. Isn't this a little dangerous? The meeting's good faith is technically violated, Guy asked. Maybe, but it also puts us in a good position to be the central hub in calling the shots in the event of an alliance, said Kakashi, shaking his head as they both destroyed the scrolls. A record of combating the organization cannot be questioned, and this kind of behavior will make it obvious to the other cages. We can no longer afford to play by the same rules. When they arrived at the village gates, where a shinobi and civilian crowd had gathered to bid them farewell, Tsunade put on her hat and said, It's what has gotten us into this mess in the first place. Be careful, Hokage-sama, please take care. Return safely. Prove your superiority to those other cages. Guy-san, Kakashi-san, please guard her well. Tsunade acknowledged the audience with a tiny wave. With his reading already in hand, Kakashi said, Ma, we'll be fine. With a proud nod, Guy said, We won't let anything happen to her. With his black Fuma shuriken tattoos on both shoulders, gold bracelets on each wrist, and the gold belt around his waist with a boar's face engraved in the center, he stood proudly facing the window of his office, his hulking physique on full display. Because he was not wearing a shirt, if it weren't for his cage cloak and hat, one might mistake the man for a bodybuilder or professional wrestler rather than the Raikage. We haven't heard back anything else from Samui's team yet, so they will most likely meet you on the road, or at the summit, told his assistant. He nodded and said, Good, all right, everything is ready, let's get started. He said, turning to his 2 guards. Darui. Before launching himself through his office window, he clapped his enormous hands together, creating a mini shockwave. Glass, wood trim, and plaster from the wall flew everywhere as he left a huge hole in his wake. She and Darui shook their heads, and his assistant sighed sadly. She moaned, He does this every time he gets exited. Well, considering where we're going, it's not surprising, Darui shrugged. What amount of property damage do you anticipate him causing as he leaves the village? She inquired. 100,000, at least, Darui snorted. With a shrug, she moved to the window and said, Are you coming? And get blamed and have to pay for damage too? Darui asked, staring at him as if he were insane. I'm going to use the stairs. She said as he trailed behind him, good point. As a light wind brushed across the desert sands, Gaara turned to face everyone there and bid him farewell, occasionally still in awe of his people's unwavering support. Please take care of yourself. Gaara-sama, Tamari-san, Konkaru-san, please take good care of Kazekage-sama. We will, Tamari said, waving at everyone while her cloak fluttered in the wind. With a chuckle, Konkaru said, as if he needs bodyguards anyhow, that Naruto guy should accompany Lady Hokage. I hope he ought to be able to break the ice with at least one international incident. Tamari saw a flicker of excitement in Gaara's eyes at the prospect of his friend being present, even though his face didn't convey it much. All right, Gaara said, turning back to face the wide desert ahead. Let's go. As he placed the Mizukage's hat in the hands of its rightful bearer, an elder of the Mist Village said, Please take care of yourself and do us proud. The man's hands trembled uncontrollably because he had Parkinson's disease, but he ignored it, and everyone in the audience was amazed at his commitment to the village and how much he accomplished despite his condition. Keeping the snake-adorned staff in his other hand, he added, Don't let anything go wrong. As she held onto the hat, the stunning Mei Terumi smiled warmly at him and said, I swear in my honor as Mizukage, I will fulfill my duty to the best of my ability. Turning to her escorts, the elderly man said, Ow, Choujiro, please guard Mizukage Dono well. The boy nervously answered, I won't fail. Probably, he was carrying a huge sword on his back that resembled a dried fish. Choujiro, you're strong and one of the 7. Stop being so modest. As he adjusted his glasses, the elder answered. To calm her bodyguard, the Mizukage smiled and said, Have faith in yourself, Choujiro, you're strong. That's why you were selected to be one of my guards, okay Choujiro? Choujiro smiled and nodded at her, flushed. You children today, why can't you simply say, yes, ma'am? We're tired of you saying things like, I'll try my best. Show some manhood, Choujiro. Get a spine. Ao shook his head in exclamation. You young whippersnappers, get off my lawn, was all Choujiro heard, despite his nod suggesting he was listening intently to the man. Even less of his tirade resonated with Mei, who only heard fragments that reminded her that she was past the prime age to find a husband and that she had no man in her life. The redhead's words and intentions belied her pleasant tone, and she turned to her guard with a deceptively sweet smile as she leaked massive killing intent. Ao, shut up or I'll kill you. Though he could understand how she might have some difficulty finding the right man because she was the Mizukage and had that other side to her sweet personality that scared the shit out of any man, Ao remained silent despite appearing perplexed by her threat. He still couldn't understand why the Mizukage always said that to him and only him, and often when he barely spoke, it was because he had said something about a man but never used the word. He knew that day he would undoubtedly die. Perhaps leaving the village would be the answer, and her luck would change with a man in Iron Country. Mei ignored the cold winds blowing all around her as she thought about her man problems. It seemed completely impossible to find the right man. Some were intimidated, others were only interested in her appearance, or worse, were just perverts. I don't need some pretty boy trying to be prettier than me, never going down that road again. A strong, bold man, but not too insecure to be intimidated by me. Perhaps a nice man who had a strong mother or sister figure to whip him into shape. Oh, and a little spontaneity would be nice, and being cute too, no more than cute, ruggedly handsome. Gamakichi made sure not to miss the chance when her line of thought made a certain blonde in the land of toads sneeze and freeze in midair. Akatsuchi, Kuretsuchi, kindly look after Tsuchikage-sama. Prove yourself to them. It's troublesome for someone my age to go to a meeting this far away, the short old man said, sighing as he held his aching hip. You young people simply have no idea how your hip can turn into a virtual time bomb. Why don't you retire then, Gramps? Smirked the group's kunoichi, who were all dressed in traditional Iwajunin garb. Your former glory isn't something you can truly depend on indefinitely. Leaning down to his superior, the last and largest of the 3, a plump man who towered over the other 2, laughed heartily and said, I'll carry your luggage and take a load off your shoulders, Tsuchikage-sama. The obstinate old geezer screamed, Don't touch, Akatsuchi, and swung his staff at the man. I don't require your assistance. Both escorts recoiled at the sickening crack that reverberated throughout the room as the old man lifted the saddles containing his luggage to his shoulders. Oh, my thighs. Oh. Only his pride as the Tsuchikage kept him from falling to the ground in agony as the old man shook from the sudden surge of unpleasant nerves telling him he should probably stay at home. When Kuretsuchi saw him, she could hardly contain her laughter. So, does this mean you'll send someone in your place? Despite his pained groans, the elderly man was able to respond sharply. What are you saying? Goddamn the Tsuchikage. I am Iwagakure's fearsome leader. Damn it, I'll bring my own bags. In frustration, Kuretsuchi squeezed the bridge of her nose and said, stubborn old ass. Suddenly, Akatsuchi effortlessly raised the elderly man, luggage and all, saying, all right, then, let's go. Carry your own luggage. A free ride was all the old man needed to relieve the pain in his back, and he couldn't really refuse such a request. The other cages wouldn't know what hit them when he arrived at the summit. The representatives of Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri completed the multi-day journey at approximately the same time, and the mediator welcomed them into the meeting site. The leaders and guards moved to their proper locations to await the arrival of the remaining groups, although the 5 traveling parties of the 5 village leaders experienced no disruptions or delays on their way to Iron Country. This did not mean that trouble was not already waiting for them. The members of Team Taka, who were heavily cloaked, braved the harsh winter weather of Iron Country as they scouted out the arriving parties for their target. With a snow owl perched on his arm, Jugo caressed it and said, there's an open path in the west with few guards. All right. Sasuke turned to Zetsu and said, tell me what Danzo looks like and don't lie to me. We're moving as soon as Karen finds Danzo, he said. This is batshit crazy. We're attacking the summit of the cages for him to kill one guy, a guy that he's never met and doesn't even know what he looks like, Karen said, shocked that she was actually involved in this. Don't worry about that, Zetsu said with a smile to Sasuke. Danzo is not a member of our community. With a nod, the Uchiha went back to his usual brooding state, saying, Danzo, you will soon taste my hatred. You will pay for what you've done. What a fool, Zetsu grinned at him after he turned away. The Hokage and Kei's cage joined the other 3 cages in the meeting room, seated around a large curved table, while their guards were visible overlooking on the top level, each pair positioned to ensure they were ready to intercept any move made on their cage. Tsunade and her guards arrived at the large building housing the meeting at the same time as Gaara and his siblings. The 2 parties entered the building, and the guards dispersed from their leaders to head to the top level. Tsunade lowered her hat to the back to see the faces of her fellow leaders. The Tsuchikage and Raikage recognized her, knowing her resume, and Tsunade nodded slightly to the Mizukage, who was inwardly happy to have another woman at the table. The other 3 cages gave Gaara a critical look, each attempting to gauge how he compared to the others. The mediator, an older man with dark hair, said, I am glad that you could make it, Hokage Dono, Kei's cage Dono. If you would, please take your seat. As they took their seats, Tsunade and Gare nodded. Tsunade was seated in the center of the meeting, with a curtain featuring the kanji for fire hanging up behind her. The Mizukage to her far right nodded respectfully, followed by Gaara. The old Tsuchikage and his distinguished nose sat directly to her left. The Raikage completed the table to her far left, and behind each cage's seat was a high banner bearing the insignia of their respective villages. Good day, I am Mifune, the leader of the Land of Iron, and I will represent myself as the mediator of this meeting, said the mediator, who welcomed them upon arrival and took a seat in front of the table to begin the proceedings. I want each person to give their introduction. Everyone nodded, and Mei escorted them away. This is Godime Mizukage, Mei Terumi. Godime Kei's cage, Gaara. Godime Hokage, Tsunade Senju. Sandame Tsuchikage Onoki, Raikage Yondaime. Following his conclusion, Mifune nodded and said, now we commence the start of the summit. I would like to start by saying that it is an embarrassment that some of you have taken so long to face the threat posed by the Akatsuki, Tsunade said. Akatsuki has already gathered enough firepower to destroy any nation it sets its sights on, and 8 of the tailed beasts have already been captured right now. The only way we can counterattack this organization is to use a large-scale joint military exercise to put a permanent stop to their aspirations. The Akatsuki has gotten this dangerous. As she put it, I've sent requests for aid to the other major villages countless times, but they were all ignored except by the Hokage. Gaara nodded in agreement. Humph, if a country had its host captured, then it has no business giving other countries orders. It's an embarrassment to the village. The Tsuchikage scowled at Gaara. Believing the inexperienced Cage needed a political lesson, why didn't you attempt a covert recovery if you had lost your host? You cannot expect assistance from other nations once it has been stolen. Your response betrays both your ignorant and antiquated way of thinking, said Gaara, unfazed instead of being amassed by some outside group of terrorists who aim to upset the delicate balance of power between the villages. It is preferable for the known and accountable entities, hidden villages, to possess the tailed beast powers. Did you try to recover your hosts once they were lost? Tsunade continued where Gaara had left off. No, the arrogant elder scowled at the first Hokage's granddaughter. More than a decade has passed since Rushi, our first Jinchuriki, retired from shinobi duty. He has since isolated himself and avoided most of my attempts to get him back on a mission from Numa no Kuni. Han disappeared 3 years ago. Han was an extremely risky subject because he was so unstable. He turned into a liability for the community. I couldn't waste money and time on a man who was so unstable. The majority of hosts are merely liabilities during times of peace. Wrong move, old man. Mei shook her head, aware of the Cage's predicament. The nine-tailed host has saved my village countless times in these times of peace, Tsunade said, surprising her by interrupting instead of Gaara after he attacked our village. His most recent solo endeavor led to the destruction of Akatsuki's most potent member and potential leader. Konoha wouldn't be here today if it weren't for his persistent efforts. He is our best protector and not a liability. Onoki sneered, perhaps you were fortunate to have a good host. I stand by my statement. So what? Sighed Gaara. Because they are inconvenient, we simply let the tailed beasts fall into the hands of whoever wants to take them. Simply put, that is lazy thinking. There is no need to be alarmed just because the animals have been taken in an attempt to soothe everyone, the Mizukage interrupted. It takes time, knowledge, and skill to be able to control them. Taming the beasts is not their goal. My sources tell me that they have been putting them all together to make a weapon of mass destruction, Tsunade said. Onoki didn't believe it, saying, oh, at best, a pipe dream. Controlling all that power at once is impossible. The guards all leapt down to the defense of their leaders in response, every weapon drawn, fist cocked, and Bloodline activated. The Raikage, who had been silent up until this point, had lost patience and had risen from his seat, his trembling arms barely holding back his rage, before smashing a portion of the table in front of him to express his frustrations and anger. The mediator stepped in and said, I advise you to avoid needless actions. We didn't come here to perform such savage acts, but to have a conversation. Ignoring the Raikage, Tsunade commanded her men to stand down, saying, Kakashi, Guy, back down. Guy relaxed and Kakashi lowered his headband, and rather than going back to the upper levels, they chose to just stand behind the Hokage. Gaara commanded, Tamari, Kankuru, that's enough. His siblings sighed in frustration before doing as their Konoha counterparts did and falling back behind their brother. It's okay, Ao and Chaojiro, Mei said, gesturing to her guards. The two Kiri shinobi lined up behind their leader, and Onoki motioned to his guards to calm down, and they nodded and followed suit. Moving behind him, Darui and Shi also followed suit, moving behind the Raikage, who had not yet calmed down. The tailed beasts were not the reason I called this meeting. To find out exactly where your allegiances lie, I called you all here. Suna, Kiri, Iwa, and Konoha. The Akatsuki is made up of missing nin from all your villages, but that's not all, yelled A, accusing his fellow Kages. I know there are those among you, including former Kages, who have used Akatsuki for their own, he said, glaring at Onoki. Kirigakure, you are the most suspicious. He sneered at Mei. There are rumors that Akatsuki was formed in another country, but you don't have diplomatic ties with any of them. To be honest, there are suspicions that someone was controlling my predecessor, the Yondaime Mizukage. The redhead scowled. I'm not going to make a big deal out of the possibility that it was Akatsuki. And you? He said, ignoring her explanation, turning to face Gaara and Tsunade. Enough. Tsunade's cold tone conveyed the message without raising her voice. This meeting is a waste of time if your sole purpose was to stand and level accusations. You rejected my warnings and requests for assistance against this threat. You are only now enraged because your own brother was taken prisoner. My teammate Jiraiya was one of the many shinobi from my village who had been killed by the Akatsuki. While most of you have been ignoring this threat, I have been preparing and placing my men on the front lines to combat it. We wouldn't be in this situation now if they had been taken seriously from the start. If you hadn't gathered your military forces, other nations wouldn't have needed to use Akatsuki. Reports of your brother being sealed with the Hachibi and another host for the Nibi spark panic in your nation, the Tsuchikage added. Not to mention your country's numerous attempts to steal not only bloodlines but also the previous nine-tailed host from my village, Tsunade said with a nod of agreement. Given that your village's previous behavior was just as corrupt as the Akatsuki's, it is challenging for you to claim the moral high ground. Although some of the actions were not on his record as the Raikage, he was powerless to deny their claims, so he scowled but remained silent. I was wondering if the defeat of the Akatsuki leader by your host shouldn't have been a devastating blow to the group now. They ought to be simpler to manage, Mei proposed. No, Tsunade said, shaking her head, because the man he vanquished was merely the Akatsuki's public face. He was strong on his own, but he wasn't the leader the real Akatsuki leader is. The cages and their guards all moved into battle-ready positions as White Zetsu erupted from the middle of the table before she could say Madara's name. "Hello everyone." Zetsu's white half yelled with delight. One issue after another. "What comes next?" A snarled in exasperation. Tsunade said stoically, "About time you Akatsuki punks showed up." "They would definitely show up here, they couldn't possibly miss this kind of chance," Gaara muttered. "Where is Sasuke Uchiha?" "That's the question," Zetsu teasingly said. "Let's all go look for Sasuke. Hurry up. Come on." "The person who murdered Zabuza and Haku," Ao mumbled. "I was the one who killed Haku. In fact, Zabuza slaughtered a group of thugs before dying from his wounds. My other student, Naruto Uzumaki, deserves the true credit for both of their defeats," Kakashi said. Ao whistled in gratitude. "You had an Uzumaki and Uchiha?" "A group of people." "Tell me where Sasuke Uchiha is right now," the Raikage yelled, losing patience and leaping over the table to grab Zetsu by the throat. "Somewhere is the answer." Zetsu sneered. "You idiot, I'm wasting time," snarled the Raikage as he knocked him unconscious. Darui, come on, let's go." "Yes, sir," they answered. "Hold on," Mei proposed. "We could have questioned him and gotten some information out of him." "Interrogation is pointless for individuals like these. They won't tell you anything unless they want you to know it," Gaara said. "Okasuke, Yurikaku, give the order for everyone to search Sasuke," Mifune said, turning to his own guards and issuing orders. "Do not engage until the Raikage arrives, if at all possible." Nodding, they said, "Right away, sir." The Raikage moved in the direction of the wall and punched through it, leaving a huge hole. Darui, launch. "I apologize for the damage," Darui said, turning around and sheepishly scratching the back of his head. The idea of combat excites Raikage-sama a little. "Darui, hurry up!" As he jumped through the hole, she shouted at him. "A bit giddy. That man was an unruly brat long before he ever became the Raikage," Onoki said, mocking. "The idea hasn't altered at all." Turning to face Tsunade, Kakashi said, "Hokage-sama." She gave in to his implicit plea. "Go on." Turning, he immediately caught up to the Raikage and his guards, and when he realized who was following, he growled in annoyance. The Raikage snarled, "I hope you're not here to talk me out of eliminating your old pupil." "I don't intend to do that." As he unveiled his Sharingan in preparation for combat, Kakashi declared, "In these eyes he is worse than trash. He is no longer a student of mine." "Well done. He's so far away," A barked. "For the time being, keep moving straight. We'll have to descend a few levels eventually because he's above us," the Jonin retorted. As soon as Mifune gave the order, the samurai mobilized, informing Team Taka that they were known. "They are aware of our presence, Sasuke. What do you want to do?" Karen inquired. The room they were in suddenly filled with dozens of samurai, so he said, "I'll handle it." Sasuke laughed darkly as he took them all on head-on with Kusanagi. And each warrior fell easily to his blade as he quickly dispatched them to their deaths. The Raikage and his crew burst through the ceiling as soon as the dust had cleared, and the hulking Kage threw away his cloak and leveled Sasuke with a look of pure rage. "I will teach you to be afraid of my wrath," the furious Kumo leader yelled. Without responding to his outburst, Sasuke charged headlong, unsheathed the Kusanagi, and leapt high into the air. Because he was interacting alone, Jugo was unable to leave. "Do not rush in alone." Darui waited, finishing a series of hand seals, and Sasuke ignored him, coming down swinging his blade. Suijinheki. Water encampment wall. Water release. The Uchiha struck the water wall and became immobile as a huge wall of water erupted from his mouth, rising high to block Sasuke. Darui then used the second jutsu in his combination, Raiden. Kangekia. Lightning release. Inspirational wave. The Uchiha was able to flip in mid-air, landing feet first, and sliding back along the guard until he stopped next to Jugo. Sasuke was electrocuted by lightning that traveled through the water wall, and he was flung back towards Jugo and the others. "Kakashi, it appears that neither you nor your village were putting up much of a fight as Sasuke poured lightning chakra into the Kusanagi," Darui said. "He's definitely lightning-based." With a nod, the copy ninja said, "He also likes to use fire too. He'll most likely use a Kaden to carry out this subsequent attack." She gave the order. "Darui, be ready to use another Suiden." Jugo muttered a curse. "Shit, in addition to a pair of Kumogakure Jonins, we also get the Raikage and copy nin Kakashi. This might not work out." Naruto, who had made some minor changes to his attire since the battle with Nagato, was hovering high above the snow-packed clouds of Iron Country, waiting for the right moment to make his presence known. He had changed his sage cloak into a cape with a high collar that protected the lower half of his face and weighted shoulder padding. He was wearing a black flak jacket with the Uzumaki spirals sewn into the shoulders and back underneath it, along with a thin, long-sleeved black shirt with orange trim, black cargo pants, black shinobi sandals, a pair of dark orange metal-plated gloves, and an orange waist sash to complete his new special Jonin attire. The blonde hovered in a meditative position with his eyes closed until one of his clones concealed within the meeting site dispelled, alerting him to Akatsuki's meddling. "And we're off." As his keen blue eyes opened, Naruto whispered to himself, letting go of the grip he had on his chakra to hide himself. He shot downward, intending to smash through everything in his path to reach his destination. Sasuke, who had almost taken the Raikage by surprise with the flames of Amaterasu before Kakashi teleported the attack away with his own Mangekyo's Kamui, looked somewhat roughed up with his Mangekyo activated, but not nearly as worn down as one would have expected him to be. With their respective allies moving to cover their flanks, the two engaged in combat until Karen suddenly sensed something startling. The Raikage stood opposite him, panting, not anticipating Sasuke to be so hard to defeat. "A visitor is on the way. Someone strong. This is unbelievable. This is a really radical chakra that I have never felt before," she cried out. The Raikage, she, and Darui all gasped in surprise as they suddenly felt the enormous chakra signature that was so large even non-sensors could feel my presence. Sasuke's desires to unleash Amaterasu on the Raikage were put on hold by the prospect of a new, better challenge. "What is it? It's astounding." A cried out. "It's coming from above us," she said, pointing to the high ceiling. "It's a human. This is the strongest power I've ever felt. It is incredibly powerful, almost like a tailed beast." The Raikage yelled, "I might be another Akatsuki. A new foe, keep an eye out." They could hear the incoming signature blasting through several floors on their way down, and Sasuke felt the incoming intruder get closer and closer, a sneer forming across his face as he felt this familiar radical presence set him on edge for some reason. When Kakashi saw who it was, his eyes widened in surprise. He had anticipated a flamboyant arrival, but this was nothing like it. "This is incredible," he exclaimed. As he finished speaking, a second hole burst through the ceiling, revealing the enigmatic figure. "What? I don't think so. The Yondaime Hokage is here," he yelled. That realization caused everyone to gasp in surprise. Quickly correcting him, Kakashi said, "No, it's Naruto Uzumaki." He stopped just in front of the hole he made, then abruptly disappeared, leaving behind a whiskered face and spiky blonde hair that blew back in the wind from the blonde that seemed to float in from the skies. "Hey, what happened to him?" Suigetsu muttered. "Sasuke, he's behind you," Karen shouted. Everyone turned to look at the newest member of the team, Naruto, who stood medium distance behind Team Taka with his sage cape and the wraps of his headband billowing dramatically behind him with his arms folded across his chest. He seemed to be looking at everyone impassively, but he was actually only looking into one person's eyes, and Sasuke met his with a stoic look of his own as time seemed to stop for a second. The cage and the other guards in the meeting room were all aware of Naruto's approach. Gaara declared, "It's Naruto Uzumaki. He would recognize that chakra anywhere, even with some changes. Gosh. If we can sense him from this distance, his youthful flames have only gotten stronger since his conflict with the Akatsuki leader," Guy cried out. As he used his Byakugan, Ao's mouth fell open. "This is unbelievable. He has the chakra presence of a Biju, just like Kisame." She grinned and said, "About time he showed up. You thought another one of your shinobi would arrive? After 2 guards were decided upon by everyone? It demonstrates Konoha's reliability," Onoki said. "You all knew that there was a good chance of Akatsuki crashing this summit," Tsunade said without showing any signs of weakness. "The only person who had the vision to take action was me. He was there for them, not for the meeting. We cannot afford to follow the rules in order to defeat the Akatsuki. The person who killed Deidara versus the person who defeated the Akatsuki leader. This ought to be fun. I'd like to see." Kuretsuchi slammed her fist against her palm and exclaimed. "How do you feel about Tsuchikage-sama? Are you ready to fight?" Akatsuchi inquired. "Do as you like. Just make sure you stay out of the Raikage's way or you'll get yourself killed," cautioned Onoki. "Yes." Pumped Kuretsuchi's fist. "Are you coming to Akatsuchi?" "No," he said with a smile and a shake of his head. "I should stay here in case Tsuchikage-sama's hip goes out." "Gaara, what should we do?" Tamari inquired. "What are your thoughts?" Gaara said as he got up to go. "I knew he'd cause an international incident," laughed Kakankuru. "You were the best, Naruto." Put the Raikage out of your mind. Karen cautioned Suigetsu and Jugo. This guy is the biggest threat right now. Suigetsu's eyes widened in shock as the larger man's body twisted around his fist and flew into a column, and he attempted to bring his broken blade around to behead him, but Naruto easily blocked the strike with the metal plate on the back of his left glove. The two then exchanged glances before charging at Naruto, who disappeared halfway through their fourth step and reappeared with his fist embedded in Yugo's gut. The blonde then nailed his chin with a palm thrust, sending his neck snapping up, and a quick spinning kick sent Suigetsu into the same column as Jugo. Sasuke tried to take advantage of his distraction by thrusting a Chidori towards his back, but Naruto skillfully shifted away from the attack, grabbed the Uchiha's wrist, and stared at him out of the corner of his eye as if he had been watching him the entire time. Naruto raised his arm towards Sasuke's chest, and the Uchiha's eyes widened slightly as the air distorted around the blonde's palm before an unseen force threw him backwards. Throughout this, Naruto kept his unwavering gaze, eventually returning his full attention to Sasuke as the Uchiha skidded back on his feet and came to a stop at the same spot he had been before. While his two guards were completely stunned, the Raikage was only mildly impressed by the spectacle. "Who the devil is this individual?" Darui blurted. Under his mask, Kakashi grinned and said, "Very special Jonin Naruto Uzumaki. His appearance, the look in his eye, he's your sensei's son, isn't he?" Ei said, turning to face Kakashi. He only needed Kakashi's silence in response to his implication. "Hey, elderly man, are you the Raikage?" Naruto called out. As his eye twitched in frustration, Kakashi grimaced, "Yeah, what of it? You're interfering with my battle. I have a grievance against this brat from Uchiha." "You mean your brother?" "Yes, he is not with them. Sasuke, isn't that correct?" Naruto said. "Yeah, he tricked me with some clone thing and got away," said Sasuke, who didn't really care. "But it doesn't really matter to me. I'll fight you all anyhow." "Damn it B. That insane idiot must have used the attack as a pretext to go have fun somewhere. I'll take care of him later. The Uchiha still have to answer for their invasion of Kumo and attack on the summit," Ei thought. "Why don't you return to the meeting and unwind? Sip on some sake with the elderly crones. We brats are capable of handling this on our own. When I'm finished, I'll bring you what's left," Naruto cheekily proposed. She was astounded by this man's mouth, asking, "Is he simply insane?" Kakashi shrugged and laughed. He had nicknamed Hokage-sama and the late Jiraiya-sama Bachan, and Ero Sennin ever since he first met them. He shoots straight. He snorted with laughter, saying, "He sounds as crazy and annoying as my brother." Yar, if isn't the runt of the Uchiha clan," Naruto said, turning back to Sasuke. "Sasuke, how are things going? I've heard you've finally gotten rid of your problematic brother." "Heard you knocked off the guy that killed that old hermit," Sasuke said with a sneer. "What was it like to taste retribution?" "I feel completely different." With a tinge of laughter in his voice, Naruto exclaimed. Narrowing his eyes, Sasuke said, "So, finally you understand." "Sure. Why don't you ditch these losers and team up with me?" Naruto said with a manic grin. "Put an end to the 5 Kage's meager schemes. Madara, screw you. We are both free to do as we please. Make a lot of trouble. All of them will be held accountable for their interference in our lives. What are your thoughts? It's an even trade. You get the old, scheming fools of Konoha, and I get Madara. Justice can be made for ourselves. Haha." When Sasuke realized it was a ruse and that Naruto was only making fun of him and his journey, he scowled. "You're still such a fool, Naruto," said Sasuke, shaking his head. Naruto joked, "Better to be a fool than a wind-up toy soldier." "So, Naruto, what are you doing here? Are you trying to take me back to that pitiful village once more?" Sasuke was taunted. "There are just 2 ways to get out of here," with a sly smile, Naruto said, "then the body bag option it is." Sasuke simply laughed off Naruto's suggestion that he would pound you into submission until you surrender and answer for your crimes. "As though you could substantiate that assertion," Sasuke said. "Naruto, you're just as naive as ever." Naruto squatted into a stance and growled, "You keep calling me by that name. It seems you've mistaken me for someone else. Alright, let me introduce myself." Sasuke's eyes widened in surprise as a fierce wind kicked up around them, and he dug his feet into the ground to firmly hold his position as his hair blew about wildly. Naruto's spiky locks fared no better than his own, and the blonde cackled madly as everyone in the area suddenly felt the true magnitude of his chakra. Naruto released another surge of chakra he'd been holding back, creating a massive crater in the ground where they stood and kicking up rocks and debris in all directions. "You no longer see the Naruto you know," Naruto proclaimed. "I am the Sennin. As for you, Well, like the rest of your beloved clan. You are history, haha, haha. In contrast to the Valley of the End, the enclosed column-filled level of the pyramid building hosting the summit didn't make for the best battlefield, but it would have to do. Naruto's white chakra cloak flowed chaotically around his body like an untamed flame as his laughter echoed across the battlefield. The cage summit was a tumultuous storm that was only matched by the chaotic twists and turns of the storm. What had begun as a battle of politics and posturing between the leaders of the 5 great nations had turned into a resumption of the battle. She acknowledged, "Okay, I have to admit, that is pretty impressive." Pretty impressive? That was the understatement of the century, in Darui's opinion. It's unbelievable? He is said to have vanquished the Akatsuki leader. What is his strength? Asked. He's unquestionably at least twice as strong as he was during that battle, based on what I know about it, Kakashi said. I'd also have to say he's only getting warmed up at this point, and that's not taking the Kyuubi into account, only his own power. Is this a warm-up? I'd hate to see him when he's hot, Darui muttered. As this meant to intimidate me. Sasuke frowned at his former teammate as your chakra flared up. I would appreciate it if you could let me know where Danzo and the other cages are located. Danzo? Why would he be requesting him, unless, Naruto smiled, the new Hokage is your new target for retaliation. Huh? So predictable. To reach the Hokage, you must pass through me. You ought to go back now. Kakashi reasoned. Danzo is not the Hokage. Madara must have enticed Sasuke here under false pretenses. Who is this Danzo guy he's talking about? Asked a bewildered Darui. He is. Let him believe what he believes, she said, raising a hand to silence him. He won't attempt to escape as long as he has his goal. Sasuke, be careful. I'm sensing some sort of deception from him, advised Karen. He has multiple chakra signatures. An irritated Sasuke shot back, of course he does, he's the host of the Nine Tails, remember? I know that, she retorted fiercely. He should still only have 2 signatures right now. I can sense a third within him, closely intertwined with his own, possibly a 4th. The Uchiha had no concern. It doesn't matter in front of these eyes. He's nothing. It won't be long until he's crushed beneath my feet, begging for mercy. The idea was mocked by Naruto, who said, we'll see about that. Come on, give it your best shot. Sasuke gestured for them to do so, saying, you won't even put on scratch me. Sasuke sneered as Naruto blurted forward and delivered a punch that he just managed to block. In a brief exchange of kicks and punches, neither of them delivered a blow. Sasuke disengaged and then leapt into the air, attempting to pull his blade away, but Naruto caught up to him too soon. As Naruto delivered blow after blow with ease, the Uchiha was on the defensive and could hardly keep up. After a while, Sasuke reacted and was able to counterattack, knocking the blonde off balance. Thanks to Sharingan, the Uchiha dominated the hand-to-hand combat, forcing Naruto to defend himself as he exerted pressure. Only brief bursts of light were visible to the untrained eye as the pair disappeared and then reappeared in different places throughout the region. He's holding back, the Raikage said, his stern gaze more fixed on Naruto's movements as his eyes followed them with ease. Naruto muttered, not bad at all. As he moved to the right to dodge an elbow blow, Naruto easily ducked a palm thrust that Sasuke followed. Sasuke launched a barrage of strikes with a variety of maneuvers, but Naruto was demonstrating his superior speed by avoiding every attack. Sasuke yelled, stop running from me, as he lunged forward to punch Naruto. But Naruto grabbed his fist instead. The Uchiha attempted to strike with his other hand, but Naruto also caught that move. They struggled for position and seemed to be at a standstill until Naruto flashed him a smile. His chakra aura erupted into a fist, striking Sasuke square in the face. After that, Naruto struck him in the stomach with a knee, sending him tumbling to the ground. Did his chakra really just form a fist and punch that guy in the face? She asked, shocked. Darui merely gave a stupid nod. Said nothing, continuing to examine the 2 former teammates with a shrewd gaze. Interesting, they must have adapted that from his one-tailed chakra cloak, said Kakashi. Not bad. He no longer has the fox attempting to control his thoughts and can benefit from all the old chakra cloak's boosts. After getting up and cleaning himself up, Sasuke said, so it seems you've improved since the last time we met. What did you expect? Naruto asked with a frustrated grunt. Sasuke said, you're good. As Naruto's aura flared, he disappeared from view. When he returned, Sasuke tilted his head just enough to avoid a blow. Then, in order to dodge a second Naruto's spinning kick, he leaned back. He reached down to balance himself with one hand, scissor kicked the 2 Narutos, and then used the lightning-charged Kusanagi in his other hand to spin into a slash. The attack struck both Narutos and caused them to dissipate in smoke puffs, with Sasuke still facing away from him, A third Naruto launched an axe kick from his blind spot, blocking him before slamming the Kusanagi handle into his throat. But not good enough. The Uchiha pinned him against a column and stabbed him in the stomach. Tell me where Danzo is and I'll end you swiftly. Blood trickled down the corner of Naruto's mouth as he grinned at him and said, "You should know better than this by now." Sasuke sneered, "You should just give in, you can't win." When Naruto disappeared in a cloud of smoke, he shot back, "It looks like those new eyes of yours are as overrated as ever." Too quickly for Sasuke to react. A fist sprang up from the floor and nailed him in the chin, sending him crashing through 2 columns and burying him beneath a mountain of debris. "Okay. I'm lost. When did he first switch with a clone?" Darui asked, scratching his head in bewilderment. She answered, "When he first flared his chakra and vanished. After that it was all clones until he came from beneath the floor. He's serious about keeping the secret of those new eyes under wraps," Kakashi observed as Naruto floated down to the ground, wearing a pair of oval sunglasses with a dark tint to hide his eyes. Flashes of light came from the crevices of the rubble heap on top of Sasuke, and the crackling of lightning reverberated throughout the room. The rest of his body shot up as soon as his lightning-covered arm did, soaring through the center pile with his Chidori current encircling his body. The Uchiha landed upright before long. All of the lightning was focused in his hand, and the Chidori's recognizable chirping filled the air. Naruto put his left arm behind his back and taunted, "The good old Chidori, huh? I'll only need one hand to beat the bring it on." Sasuke dismissed the idea with a sneer and immediately charged Naruto. He charged him head-on, cocking his right fist back as Naruto imitated his movements and his chakra cloak flared to life once more. As Naruto drew closer, Sasuke squinted and said, "The conceited idiot. He will not even make use of his Rasengan." The Uchiha rushed forward, thrusting his attack towards Naruto, intending to take the punch head-on and pierce right through his heart. He was never even close. Unexpectedly, Naruto revealed his hidden left hand, holding a low-powered futon Rasengan that rendered the Chidori completely ineffective. The air twisted around Naruto's right fist as he swung it forward. Shinken. Divine Fist. Before Sasuke could counter the deception, a huge shock wave of energy sent the Uchiha hurtling backwards and crashing through a wall after he felt an unseen force slam into his body as he watched Sasuke be buried in yet another heap of rubble. Naruto stood motionless, his fist extended and his eyes uninterested. Naruto said, "I guess I lied. I did say I was only going to use one hand. You are not the Avenger you claim yourself to be. There's no way someone on your level could have beaten Itachi Uchiha at his best. That illness of his must have kicked in overdrive and he succumbed to it in your battle." Naruto spat in disgust at his former teammate, causing his chakra cloak to fade. With his sage cape flapping behind him, the blonde turned his back on Sasuke and walked toward the wreckage, saying, "Take that piece of trash into custody and do what you will." The shinobi who once called himself my rival died a long time ago. There's nothing but an empty shell back there. An enraged Sasuke stood up once more and leapt through the wall's opening, screaming, "Don't you turn away from me. You don't get to walk away from me, Naruto." As Mangekyo spun wildly, "You know nothing of my hatred and my vengeance. Everyone will taste my wrath." The furious Uchiha launched a devastating attack with his back to Naruto, who didn't even acknowledge him. Amaterasu. The unquenchable fires erupted, sweeping out to Blonde. "So predictable," he said quietly before anyone could even warn him. Naruto swiftly and calmly spun around, thrusting a palm at the fire. The flames were swiftly extinguished as Naruto's chakra shield absorbed the attack, forming a bubble-like shield of chakra in front of his palm. When Naruto lifted his other arm and the air warped around his extended palm, Sasuke was flung uncontrollably in Naruto's direction. The blonde struck him in the chest with a rib-cracking blow. Precisely at the right moment, Sasuke's mouth erupted in blood, and his eyes grew wide. He was face down in the ground after a strong elbow to the back of his neck. Just as the effects of the first blow were really beginning to sink in, he was rolled onto his back and skidded towards their observers after receiving a kick to the ribs for good measure. Unable to process what had happened to him, Sasuke lay there in shock and agony, his left eye leaking blood. "How could he beat me like this? This shouldn't be happening. I have the Mangekyo." Naruto looked down on him with cold gaze. "You're nothing to me. Not a rival, not a worthy foe, not even an old friend. We were never really friends. It was all something you trumped up in that insane head of yours at the Valley of the End. If we really were the friends you claimed we were, you wouldn't have that Mangekyo Sharingan right now because I'm standing right here. It was so easy to play you for a fool, showing up flaunting lots of chakra, talking a big game. You probably thought, same old Dobby probably has nothing but more of the Kyuubi and a bunch of bravado to fall back on. The truth is it's you who knows nothing about me. You never have and never will." Sasuke froze, his thoughts racing from the pain, the shock, and the beginnings of doubt and fear. Naruto walked over to Sasuke and said, "It's time for you to be put down once and for all." Sasuke's teammates moved to try to save their leader before he could carry out that threat. A resurrected Suigetsu yelled, "Karen! Help Sasuke!" As he and Jugo double-teamed Naruto and Karen assumed Sasuke's fallen form, she examined him quickly and discovered that Naruto had broken multiple bones and caused significant internal damage. How powerful is this man? As she lowered her shirt collar to reveal her shoulder, she thought Sasuke was able to heal himself by biting down and sucking in her chakra when she tipped his head over the exposed area. Their efforts weren't going as well for Jugo and Suigetsu. While Jugo aimed to use his arm blade to decapitate the blonde, Suigetsu closed in, swinging his broken blade to split Naruto in two enormous hands of chakra extended and stopped their attacks by snatching them by the arms as Naruto's chakra aura came to life. Shit. This was a bad idea. How is this guy so fucking strong? Suigetsu exclaimed as he struggled in vain to break free. Damn it! Yelled Jugo, who was also struggling to escape. With his arms extended to the sides and aimed at both Taka team members, Naruto's chakra aura flared as they saw the air distorted around his palms. They both braced themselves. Naruto roared, "Ha!" As his chakra aura violently flared, he pushed them back, embedding the chakra arms deep into the walls on either side of the room. Releasing their grip, 4 medium-length chakra rods shot out from each palm. While he kept his arms extended, the Team Taka pair experienced a second wave of pain as the rods pinged them into the wall and impaled them through each limb. "Have you no respect for the dead?" The blonde frowned as he picked up the broken blade Suigetsu had dropped, finally identifying it as Zabuza's. "Yo, sensei," he said as he turned to face Kakashi and threw the shattered Zanbedu in his direction. Grabbing it by the handle, Kakashi muttered, "Zabuza's old blade? I guess we'll have to return it to its rightful owner after this is all over?" The blonde gave Sasuke's cronies a frustrated glance. Naruto mentally chastised himself for giving them the chance to meddle. Even though the two were now permanently disabled, he mentally kicked himself once more as he turned around to see Sasuke refreshed by Karen. "Fuck." She laughed, "Yeah, you should have been paying them more attention. We also shouldn't have stood here like a bunch of idiots and let them help him," Darui said, rolling his eyes. "Your initial little ruse allowed you to reach this far, but I will not make the same mistakes of underestimating you going forward," said Sasuke. "I will beat you. You will tell me where Danzo is, and then I'll kill you." Naruto raised his cape above his head and threw it aside, saying, "I was going to let you be arrested if you had stayed down, out of respect for your brother, but since you have chosen to continue." As Naruto extended his neck and shoulders, the weighted garment made a huge indentation in the floor. "You will no longer be afforded such concessions. You can't compromise with criminals like you. No compromises, no mercy, you will die." As he charged lightning chakra into the Kusanagi, Sasuke roared, "I'll never allow my ambition to end here. I'm not afraid of you. You're nothing more than minor obstacle for me to break through." Naruto pushed him, saying, "Well, if that's how you feel, then let's take it beyond this point." Chidori Koken. 1000 Birds Sword. The Uchiha blurred toward Naruto, his blade held just behind him, ready to strike. With the wind whirling around his fists, Naruto waited for the Uchiha. Naruto blocked with one wind-covered fist as Sasuke tried a diagonal slice, then slammed out with the other, saying, "Senpuken, Tornado Fist." To avoid a direct hit, Sasuke twisted his body, but the attack's propellant force threw him back and knocked Kusanagi out of his grasp halfway up a column. He twisted in midair, gathered himself, and landed on his feet. Chidori Senbon. 1000 Birds Senbon. He threw at Naruto as he channeled more lightning chakra into his hands. Numerous lightning strikes in the shape of senbons were directed at Naruto. Spiral-shaped balls of wind formed in Naruto's hands as he knelt and bent his arm at his sides. Then he pushed them in the direction of the approaching attacks, saying, "Futon. Rasengangan. Wind Release. Spiral Shot." Naruto launched several wind blasts in the shape of spirals the size of palms, each of which struck a Chidori Senbon square in the face and neutralized the attack. The spiral balls in his palm died out as he finished neutralizing Sasuke's attack, but they were swiftly replaced by spiral balls of fire. Kaden. Rasentekiden. Fire Release. Spiral Grenade. Sasuke was the target of the sage's fast-firing barrage of flaming projectiles, but the majority missed their mark by moving along the column. Sasuke was able to easily avoid the ones that were on target. "Fool. He won't give up. He just keeps firing and firing, hoping he'll get lucky," sneered Sasuke as he easily avoided another blast. With no end in sight to his attack, Naruto continued to fire spiral blasts frantically, seemingly in a trance after passing through a hole in the south wall created by the battle. Gaara, his siblings, and Kuretsuchi arrived to this scene. As he looked around the battlefield, Kankuro whistled in gratitude, saying, "Man, it looks like we've missed some good stuff already." In order to protect himself from a stray attack, Gaara uncorked his gourd and watched the scene stoically without saying anything. "Sasuke Uchiha, you still have the same eyes that are full of hate and malevolent intent, and that yearn for power. Just like my eye used to be," Gaara thought. "I was rescued from the hell of loneliness by Naruto. I discovered that way of life didn't work. You have turned down Naruto's attempts to save you and are now escaping into your own hate-filled world. You have no way of getting back now to prevent you from spreading your hateful illness throughout the world. Naruto has turned against you. He won't fail." Temari concentrated on the actual fight while her brother pondered the conflict's deeper meanings in Naruto's form. She squinted and said, "He's just wasting chakra firing away like that." Kuretsuchi answered, "No, he's doing something else. Look. Naruto's attacks weren't just random ones. They were building up in the air around Sasuke from all sides, and the Iwakunoichi had quickly realized this. Sasuke quickly came to the same realization, but it was much too late. When it finally hit him, the dark-haired Avenger muttered, "What is this?" A sea of spiral fire blasts encircled him on all sides. "I thought you were going to stop underestimating me. Played you for a fool again. You never expected a guided assault. Your reign of terror ends today, Sasuke." Kaden. Rasentekiden Renda. "Fire release. Spiral grenade barrage," said Naruto, with a smirk on his face and a laugh of amusement. When Naruto swung his arms downward, the spiral blasts quickly circled Sasuke for a few revolutions before all of them fired at him at once, causing a loud explosion. Everyone stared into the dark cloud of debris as a great deal of smoke poured out from the impact point, waiting to see what the brilliant attack would do. When a blast of Amaterasu emerged from the smoke and engulfed Naruto nailed, they were all taken by surprise. The fierce flames persisted, causing a hole to be burned through the floor. Sasuke was entirely unharmed and shielded by the Amaterasu shield, a huge rib cage covered in black hell flames, when the smoke around him dissipated. That was too close for comfort. Karen sighed as she emerged from hiding. "I'm still unable to locate Danzo, which is strange. He must be hiding with the other cages, and he must have his own sensor. We'll have to find out where they are, I suppose." "You should never have challenged me, Naruto. No matter how strong you become, you'll never hold a candle to my power." Sasuke's eyes shot back with a fierce look. In response, Naruto landed gracefully on the ground after somersaulting through the air out of the hole that Amaterasu had created. His undershirt was ripped and slightly burned, and his flak jacket was smoking a little, but otherwise in good condition. In an instant, he hurried Sasuke and closed the distance between them with a high-power shunshin. As he reappeared, Naruto channeled chakra into his leg and delivered a powerful knee thrust that nailed Sasuke in the face and broke through the shield's bone. Sasuke was smashed into a column by the force of the blow. The Uchiha was furious that he appeared incapable of defeating what he regarded as a weaker opponent, even though the shield had lessened the force of the attack. Naruto mockingly asked, "Why the long face? You expected that to end it? Come on, it's just starting to get exciting. Despite the fact that I want to shove a Rasengan right down your throat, I can't help but live in the moment a little. The entire summit of the 5 cages has been put on hold on account of you and me. I only wish we had more open space so we could really go nuts." As he pulled himself from the column, Sasuke scowled at his former teammate and said, "I should have killed you at the Valley of the End. And I probably should have let Orochimaru kill you in the Forest of Death, but who's counting?" replied Naruto with a sly smile. Sasuke opened his attack by peeling back a portion of his shield. He took a cue from Naruto and used lightning chakra to charge his arms before launching his own rapid-fire attack, Chidori Senbon Renda, 1000 Birds Senbon Barrage. As he danced through the attack with ease, Naruto's speed seemed to increase. To his increasing annoyance, the entire lightning Senbon Barrage appeared to travel through numerous afterimages. Naruto's ability to dodge was swiftly discovered by the Raikage's watchful eye. He's using the gravity manipulation to slow down the attacks once they get close to him. It must seem like they are moving slowly to him. "Why won't you stay still?" the Uchiha yelled in exasperation as he stopped attacking. From his position hovering in midair, Naruto grinned at him and said, "You didn't say please." Sasuke's eyebrow twitched in frustration. "Please? Please? Well then, Puhleaze." He unleashed the Chidori Iso, 1000 Birds Sharp Spear, a concentrated spear attack, after lightning had charged up in his hand once more. The lightning spear stopped just inches in front of Naruto's chest, Proving that the attack was unsuccessful because it was unable to penetrate his chakra cloak, the blonde made a show of dusting himself off after casually swatting the spear away from himself. He was glaring at Naruto when he waved at him and then revealed himself as a shadow clone. Even though Sasuke knew it was too late, he looked up to see Naruto's fist approaching and said, "Shit." Shinraken. Divine Fist. In an instant, the super gravity punch sent him tumbling to the ground. Even after creating his signature hand seal and creating roughly 24 clones, Naruto wasn't finished yet. Kamikaze Cage Bunshin Shugai Sentai. Kamikaze Shadow Clone Assault Squadron. The clones all raced in the direction of the moment Sasuke hit the floor, and upon making contact, they detonated a series of explosions as the spectators lifted their arms to protect their faces from the debris the explosions kicked up. The roaring attack rocked the entire area. The power, skill, and technique that two were exchanging astounded Kuratsuchi, who exclaimed, "Wow! Whoa! This is amazing. Two guys my age are involved in what is essentially the fight of the decade." Konkaru complained, "Are they planning on destroying this entire place or what?" Tamari nodded her head. "I don't like sitting on the sidelines like this, but at this point we'd only get in the way. Only Gaara, the Raikage, and Kakashi could keep up with these two. Now, what are you going to do?" Sasuke Uchiha. Her youngest brother's eyes narrowed where he had last been seen. On the opposite side of the room, the feelings were largely the same. She muttered, "Talk about your overkill. Yeah, there's no way anybody could have survived that." Darui laughed. In response, Kakashi said, "I wouldn't be so sure." Darui questioned, "Why do you say that?" "Because he hasn't let his guard down," she said, nodding to Naruto. Naruto was indeed still on high alert, gazing into the dense smoke as though he were anticipating something. In remembrance of Sasuke's counterattack using the final cloud of smoke, Naruto used a futon. Daitapa, wind release, great breakthrough, to dispel the smoke. Everyone was taken aback by what it showed, and he looked icy. The horned head, arms, and torso of a demonic skeleton with some musculature had grown out of the Amaterasu-covered rib cage that surrounded Sasuke. Everything is still protected by Amaterasu's flames. The enormous construction developed a mad expression in his eyes from within. "Behold, the power only granted to those who have awakened the double Mangekyo Sharingan, Susanoo," said Sasuke. Naruto couldn't resist embracing the excitement that had been building inside of him in spite of the circumstances. Even though he no longer saw himself as Sasuke's friend, rivalries endure. "That's it, Sasuke, show me what you got. There's nothing like defeating your opponent when they're at their strongest." XXAO had been providing a rough account of the battle back in the meeting room using his Byakugan and sensory techniques. He was so preoccupied with that he nearly missed Karen using her senses to find the room. Al reported, "It seems the enemy has a sensor with them. They've been using the cover of the battle to find this location." Mei asserted, "The enemy knowing our location doesn't change much." With a nod of agreement, Tsunade said, "Once the enemy arrives, we'll deal with them." "That is if they last long enough to make it here. This battle they're waging right now is no joke," said Ao, shaking his head in frustration. "This summit might be interesting after all," Onoki said with a sly smile. "In order for me to see them for myself, I hope they both come here." XX Gaara asked himself, "Is this the power of darkness?" in mild amazement at what he saw. "Meet my absolute defense. You won't be able to lay a scratch on me, it's impossible," yelled Sasuke. Karen became agitated upon learning of Susanoo, saying, "This is terrible. Sasuke has a colder, darker chakra. I don't like the direction this is taking." Even though his former pupil demonstrated an impressive technique, Kakashi was unimpressed. After seeing Naruto's development up close, it was difficult to ask, is this the extent of Sasuke's anger and hatred? Is this power the outcome? Naruto and Sasuke weren't all that different. He knows the rage that brought Sasuke to this moment. Naruto has used his rage as a source of inspiration, training and making an effort to go well beyond his limits. Sasuke has allowed his resentment to grow into hatred and rage. It is ultimately what prevents him from moving forward. He can't let go of anything, and as a rageaholic you don't really have focus or direction, but he's grown powerful. He is merely a tool and not genuinely strong. What makes Naruto so dangerous is that he has learned to use his anger as a focus aid in contrast to Sasuke, who appears to be merely trapped in his own small world. He has transformed his rage into something constructive. "I used to concentrate on you because I believed you needed the most assistance in discovering what was really important. Observing you in this state makes me regret wasting my time." Naruto was unfazed by his opponent's insane expression or the enormous structure in front of him. For those who had previously witnessed him fight, his appearance seemed all too familiar. Kenkiro blurted, Why does he look like he's about to try and break that thing? Gaara's lips briefly curled into what he thought was a smile before he said, because he is. Absolute defense, huh? I guess it's time to find out what happens when the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. Naruto said quietly. Naruto made his signature hand gesture once more before Sasuke could move, and a huge cloud of smoke blocked his vision. An even larger wave of the Kamikaze Shadow Clone Assault Squadron, also known as the Kamikaze Kage Bunshin Shugai Sentai, was released at Susanoo from the smoke. As the arm advanced and cut at the Kage Bushin, Susanoo's left hand revealed the faint outline of a sword, setting off an untimely series of explosions before the clones could even reach Susanoo. The original Naruto and 6 shadow clones used the smoke cloud as cover to create a massive Rasengan, and the Kamikaze clones weren't more than a secondary diversion for the smoke cloud. The enormous spiraling sphere was seen expanding to its full size after the initial smoke and the explosion's debris had cleared. It was about the size of Susanoo's rib cage. Naruto was able to control the attack as the shadow clones that were helping to create it dispersed because the enormous arms of his chakra shroud overlapped with his own. Even without taking into account the impact on the building, Kakashi believed that the Rasen Shuriken could not be defeated by his Amaterasu shield or even by him countering with a regular Amaterasu. Rasengan is still very large. Although Susanoo's appearance was impressive, the object appeared to be a huge summon. It was just absurd to see a person of Naruto's normal size wielding a powerful weapon that dwarfed his own body. He's not going to do what I think he's going to do with that, is he? I mean, no one is that crazy, said Darui. She simply shot him a sardonic glance before turning to face the Raikage and rolling his eyes. Darui swiftly corrected, saying, "Correction, no one else is that crazy." After anticipating that Naruto would use the Kyuubi to counter, Ivana was taken aback. It's almost like a tailed beast ball, just look at the size of that thing. And it's all his own power. This out to be good, he said. At random, the blonde said, "Oi, Gaara, long time no see," to the cage. Gaara caught his secret meeting, but most people were sweating at the totally inappropriate time to say hello to position himself to protect the onlookers from the potential backlash of the impending fight. The redhead spilled his sand all over the room. The build-up to this titanic battle seemed to drag on for a while. The Raikage's patience soon ran out. "Get him!" I yelled. "Senpo! Taikyoku Odama Rasengan! Sage Art! Supreme Ultimate Big Ball Spiraling Sphere!" shouted Naruto. The enormous chakra hand's arms spread out, propelling the assault toward Susanoo. Susanoo's left hand leapt forward to counter. Releasing a powerful Amaterasu blast, the massive Rasengan was able to push the concentrated blast of fire to the 2/3 mark before it became a stalemate. Despite the attacks colliding halfway between the two, Naruto tried to push his attack forward while gritting his teeth as he fought to keep Susanoo alive. Sasuke's eyes began to slowly leak blood. "Come on," Naruto muttered as his body squirmed forward in midair, attempting to command the Rasengan to follow suit. For a brief moment, Kakashi thought he saw Naruto and Sasuke overshadowed by the silhouettes of Nagato and Itachi. When he saw Naruto slowly begin to move his body forward and the Rasengan slowly start to do the same, he dismissed it as his mind playing tricks. Unable to resist, Kakashi exclaimed, "That's it. Stay with it. Wear him down. You're nothing but a stepping stone to me. I will crush you. I will crush your Hokage, Danzo. I will make that whole village suffer," said Sasuke, refusing to be overtaken and bringing Susanoo's right hand forward to brace the left wrist and intensify the flame. The flames of hell began to push the attack back towards Naruto as the Rasengan's advance was stopped. Kankuro screamed, "Shit, he's being overtaken, we gotta do something." Gaara said, "No, you don't have to, just watch." Naruto was not finished yet. As it turned out, Naruto roared, "Fuck you, asshole." As a surge of chakra fed his enormous chakra arms and flooded into his chakra cloak, the blonde exploded with the same intensity as Sasuke's rage. After his final tirade, the attack once again overtook the fire blast as the chakra hands surged forward, but they returned to a standstill once more. That was short-lived. A Naruto clone that had been concealed on the ceiling came to life with the sole intention of accumulating enough natural chakra to explode. Senpo. Bunshin Daibakuha. Sage Art. Great Clone Explosion. The clone flew in Susanoo's direction and struck the upper left side of its skull, while cracks and fractures developed throughout the rest of the skull. The bones near the point of impact broke. Although the attack only caused minor damage overall, its main effect was to temporarily break Sasuke's control over the technique, which allowed Naruto to overwhelm him. Naruto exclaimed, "You're finished," and conjured up a final burst of chakra. When Sasuke realized he was going to be overpowered by the attack, he threw Susanoo's arms out in front of him, destroying several columns, and then angled the body so that it blasted through even more into an archway behind him. As the force of the attack sent Susanoo's body backwards in the direction Sasuke had intended, the giant Rasengan crashed into the arms and ground right through them. Parts of the ceiling began to collapse as the columns collapsed, but the Rasengan slammed the body into an archway, tore right through the bone, and exploded, effectively amplifying the cave. XX The Rasengan's final burst of energy was strong enough to shake the entire building and stun some of the meeting room's occupants, even though Susanoo had taken the brunt of its power. Onoki grumbled, "Young people these days. No sense of restraint. I'd only expected this type of nonsense from the Raikage. Sheesh. Looks like that Uzumaki kid is just as wild as Kisame, maybe even stronger," Ao grumbled. He packed a ton of chakra into whatever the hell that just was. Nodding wisely, Guy said, "Naruto's flames of youth will carry the day." Yeah sure, Ao said, blinking at him bewildered. Choujiro found it difficult to comprehend that there was another person like Kisame out there. "I probably just missed out on the best part of this whole damn summit," Mei said, regretting her decision to stay as her eyebrows twitched in frustration. Tsunade leaned her chin against her fist and muttered, "If that brat destroys the entire building and we have to pay for it, he will be doing D ranks until he's 40. XX When Susanoo got blasted back into the archway she was hiding in, Karen had assumed that everything was over, that is, until Sasuke suddenly showed up and pushed them both to the floor above. For safety, he dropped her on her ass without any apologies and gave her only a few seconds to recover. With his eyes returning to their typical Sharingan, Sasuke asked, "Have you got the location?" Karen answered, "I've got the spot with the rest of the cages." Sasuke said, "Good, take me there." She questioned, "But what about Jugo and Suigetsu? Their chakras are still back there." Sasuke yelled, "Forget them, I need to find Danzo." "What?" Karen froze in shock, not believing he was going to abandon them. He yelled at her, "Lead me to him now. What are you waiting for?" As she stood up, she stumbled, "Okay, let's go." Because of Naruto's forewarning, Gaara's sand was able to protect everyone from the cave. The only one without a sand shield was the Raikage, who favored blasting away the debris aimed at him with his own fists. Naruto was visible floating in the air from where he had last launched his attack after the dust and debris had settled. His arms fell to his sides as his chakra shroud faded, and he slowly fell to the ground, landing on his knees to try to catch his breath. A tattoo of summoning appeared on his shoulder when he rolled up his left sleeve. To the surprise of most, the tired blonde activated it by pricking his finger, conjuring up a duplicate of himself. He stood up shakily and asked the clone, "Is everybody in place?" "Yeah, just waiting for the signal as soon as," the clone said, nodding. "He makes himself known. The base is guaranteed to be clear, I know," concluded Naruto. Sheepishly, the clone scratched the back of his head and smiled, saying, "Sorry, boss." Naruto looked expectantly at the clone and said, "Don't worry about it, I'm kind running low here so." The clone saluted him and said, "Yes, sir," before displacing him. Naruto grunted, feeling the reviving surge of chakra enter his body. "Yeah. That's it," he said. He sensed that his reserves had returned to roughly 60%. "Is it over?" She was asked by Darui. "No, I can still sense him. He using the cave-in as a cover. He's heading up above," responded she. The Raikage yelled, "Punk is probably trying to run away now, not on my watch." Kakashi declared, "He's probably pursuing the remaining cages." As Naruto picked up his sage cape, which had been knocked back close to them during the battle, he interrupted, "That's exactly where he's going. The bastard thinks Danzo is the Hokage. Isn't he going to be in for a surprise? I'm tempting to let the old hag knock him into next week. We should tell her he smashed the sake supply for the meeting." Kakashi laughed. As he put his cape back on, Naruto muttered, "Oh man, you're cruel. I was willing to make it quick and painless. You want to get him beaten to death Arrow Sennin style. Remind me not to piss you off, like ever." She questioned the Raikage, "What do you want to do with his two teammates? They're still disabled." "The samurai can take them into custody after the Uchiha, now," said he. "First one there gets to finish Sasuke," Naruto said as he sped up through a hole in the ceiling, leaving them all in his dust. "That's gonna be me," she exclaimed as she jumped up after him. Sasuke had planned to enter covertly to observe Danzo, but Ao destroyed his element of surprise. Ao warned, "The enemy is here, up above." Sasuke was standing on the ceiling, staring down at them with his typical Sharingan when everyone looked up. He froze as he looked around the room and saw Tsunade sitting in the Hokage seat. Naruto nailed him in the chest with a headbutt that sent him crashing into the far wall before his mind could even comprehend the significance, with his sage cape flapping behind him. Naruto hung over everyone in the area Sasuke had just taken, staring down at his former teammate. As Naruto put it, "You can run all you want, Sasuke, but you can't escape from me. Look around. You've been played for a fool again. Danzo isn't here. He never was Hokage. Your vengeance have rendered you nothing more than a simple-minded fool." Sasuke, caught off guard by the blow, got to his feet with a grimace. He briefly lost focus due to the shock of learning that Tsunade was the Hokage. "Sasuke, he's right. Danzo was never in hiding. He was never here. They lied to you." Karen exploded into the room. The Uchiha growled, "No matter, killing the Hokage is still worth my while." "Killing the Hokage?" snorted Naruto. "Not on my watch. Lady Hokage, I didn't know your village produced such good-looking men. Such a waste that they're trying to kill each other," Mei said, brushing a lock of hair out of her face. "These two are often more trouble than they're worth," Tsunade said, rolling her eyes. Naruto took the initiative while the Uchiha were still standing around pondering their options. Shinraken, Divine Fist, was one of his favorite new techniques, and as he blurred forward, his chakra cloak came to life. As he crashed into the wall once more, Sasuke was able to protect himself with Amaterasu's shield, but he didn't anticipate the follow-up blow. When Naruto swung his right arm forward and threw a huge chakra fist at Sasuke, he smashed through the wall and into a hallway. Senninken, Ultra Sage Fist. After slamming into the second wall, he fell to the ground and dropped to his knees. "It's as if every cell in my body is aching so much pain," he said, expressing how exhausting it was to use Susanoo to defend himself. "It's already this difficult to maintain, and I haven't even mastered it, Itachi. How much worse was it for you?" "What's happening? His chakra is so faintly palpable now," Karen thought. "All the experimentation and forbidden enhancement techniques you underwent with Orochimaru can never compare to my own chakra capacity, regeneration and stamina capabilities. You're running on empty while I've caught my second wind," declared Naruto as he proceeded to make his next. Naruto's chakra fist seized Sasuke as he struggled to resist. Lifting him back into the cage's room, he attempted to fully summon Susanoo before Naruto could hold him up in front of everyone. Had briefly succeeded in releasing him, but it was short-lived as he could only keep up the rib cage shield. Then Naruto declared, "This is the end, Sasuke. Your time has come." When the left chakra hand caught Sasuke around his Amaterasu rib cage shield and raised him into the air, his chakra cloak and arms abruptly turned black. Sasuke was suddenly surrounded by a sphere of chakra as the chakra from the fist gathered around him, saying, "Yami Senninken Q, Dark Sage Fist Coffin." And this is where it ends. Yami Senninken. So, he felt a disruption in his chakra before he could complete the technique. He noticed a white, gunk-like substance beginning to spread throughout his body. As he looked down, White Zetsu's head eventually emerged from the gunk. He noticed that everyone else in the room was in a similar situation. How? With the one eye he could keep open, Sasuke observed the scene as the pool of chakra fell from all around him. "Is this Zetsu?" "These chakras," Karen said, turning to face the original Zetsu, which was still lying in the center of the room. "It's all him. It's that first Akatsuki guy. He's leeching off our chakras," Mei shrieked. "Leeching chakras? Didn't your mother teach you not to take candy from strangers?" chided Naruto. The room was suddenly filled with Naruto shadow clones, who plunged their hands into every forming Zetsus. "This guy has weird chakra. What is going on?" Zetsu began to say, but was interrupted when the part of him that was attached to Naruto abruptly turned to stone, the face changing into a statue of a frog. Similar incidents occurred throughout the room as a Naruto clone fed the leech's sage chakra, turning them to stone. The unexpected turn of events stunned the hidden black Zetsu in the snowy land of iron. "How did he react so perfectly to my Hoshi no Jutsu, spore technique?" asked Zetsu. "It's as if he knew what was coming. Sheesh, this Naruto guy is really becoming a pain in the ass. No freebies for you." "The minute I entered the room and spotted Zetsu, I knew it was only a matter of time," said Naruto. "Nagato deserves all the credit, but I can't really explain that to them." Everyone returned to their starting positions as the Naruto clones all dispersed. Onoki looked at Sasuke and Naruto with, "I can't believe a brat like you killed Deidara, and there's no doubt you're the spawn of that bastard Yondaime Hokage. The resemblance is uncanny." As he rearranged the Dark Sage Fist Coffin, or Yami Senninken Q, around Sasuke, Naruto growled, "Go have a cup of tea or something, old man. I'm busy here." The chakra sphere shrank into a single marble-sized black sphere before disappearing entirely in Game over Sasuke Uchiha Yami Senninken Soso. Dark Sage Fist Funeral. No. Sasuke. Karen exclaimed. His chakras are gone. You asshole. Hey. Where's the Uchiha? Exclaimed as he rushed into the room, followed by Gaara and others. The Namikaze's brat just finished him, crushed him into nothing, said Onoki. The Raikage screamed, you brat, he was mine to finish. Naruto shot back, the bastard isn't dead, he escaped again. This is his work, no doubt. Ao asked, what are you talking about? We all just saw you finish him, I saw his chakras vanish. Naruto nodded. He wasn't crushed, he vanished from beneath the chakra. Before I completed the technique, I'm surprised his master took so long to bail him out, I almost thought he was going to let me kill him. Madara's voice echoed as he swirled to existence in the room behind everyone. Sasuke draped over his shoulder. You destroyed my last pawn. Can't have you wiping out this one so soon. Snorted Naruto. About you made your presence known, I've been waiting for you to come crawling out of whatever hole you've been hiding in. We meet again. Naruto Uzumaki, you a truly one meddlesome fool, said Madara. A yelled. Who is this guy? Naruto laughed. You guys don't know? I thought he was your boss? The self-proclaimed ruler of the world has finally decided to reveal himself to the rest of us mere mortals, isn't that right, Madara Uchiha? Madara said nonchalantly, so you know who I am already. It looks like Pain's betrayal runs far deeper than I thought. You have no idea, Naruto answered. Naruto had finally reached the moment he had been anticipating. The fight with Sasuke had only served as a means to an end for Naruto. A little amusement before the actual target appeared. It would have been a bonus bowl of ramen if he had killed the bastard, but he knew Madara would protect his new pawn following Pain's recent defeat. The only benefit of prolonging the fight was that many onlookers would be able to witness Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan in action. His opponents would be ready the next time the Uchiha appeared anywhere. Naruto was aware that the young Uchiha's new master would not have the same luck. Madara had a purpose for being here. A man doesn't remain in the background for decades before coming out to greet others. It was important to mess up the way that message was delivered. The minor win went to Naruto as long as the 5 cages didn't respond in the way Madara anticipated. Additionally, Naruto was aware that he would only have one chance to deliver his own message to Madara. He would not overlook it. From behind his spiral mask, Madara looked down at the gathered shinobi with a very serious expression. So far, everything had gone pretty much as he had expected. All he had to do was keep things moving forward so his plans could eventually be realized. After observing Naruto, he concluded that Pain's transformation was merely a hint of what the young shinobi was really capable of. Maybe the boy is turning out to be a good opponent after all. It wouldn't hurt if things got interesting along the way. Defeating a formidable opponent always tastes sweeter. I want to see Naruto Uzumaki's full potential, provided that everything turns out well for me in the end, Madara thought. Madara muttered, so these are the 5 cages now, huh? What a rather boring and predictable group of individuals. Nonetheless, it pleased me greatly to have you all gathered here together. Then a yelled, what the hell are you doing here, Madara? The Akatsuki mastermind casually replied, oh, you know, this and that. I had to pluck my fellow clansmen here out of the line of fire. Never would have thought Naruto Uzumaki of all people would have in it him to do the deed. Laughed. People change and there's no use in pretending that you actually care about Sasuke. That moron is nothing more than a wind-up toy soldier you crank up with angst and hatred before unleashing him on a target. Madara raised his hand dismissively, you're right to a degree about Sasuke. He's very easy to handle, but remember that was his choice to follow me. He's been following down this path his entire life. He hasn't changed one bit. People don't change. People don't like to change. They like to sit in their little comfort zones and hope everything will be okay. They never learn anything. That's why history continues to repeat itself over and over again. Why do you think there have been 3 great ninja wars? But you, Naruto Uzumaki, you're different. You cause people change around you. You also seem to reinvent yourself on the fly at the drop of a hat. I guess that makes you a freak. I like you. Naruto was sweating when he said, after figuring out your little Toby routine, I didn't think you could become any more of a creepy old bastard. I was wrong. His eerie tone made everyone a little alarmed. Hey, did you find that unsettling? You spoke too soon. Kakashi thought unleashing the most eccentric Jonin in all of the elemental nations was the only way. The silver-haired man knew to wrest control of the summit away from Madara. With a note of amazement in his voice, Kakashi said, hey, guy, is just me or did we stumble on the deal of the century? 2 Uchihas for the price of 1? It's like an Icha release party come early. An excited guy exclaimed, Yosh, a deal so youthful, you didn't even have to bring a coupon. But this is a perfect opportunity. I can't pass it up. Using these 2 I can spread it. Spread what exactly? Kakashi asked him, looking at him in confusion and a little afraid. The springtime of youth, the green beast exclaimed. Like the majority of non-Konoha shinobi, Darui was utterly disoriented. The springtime of what now? He asked. An elder ninja and his pupil, reminds me so much of Lee and myself. It would be a shame to waste this grand opportunity to pass down the ways of youth to another pair of shinobi. Then they can take the youth and pass it on, and the youth will flourish throughout the world. Kakashi said, it'll be one big youthful epidemic, as he peered horrifiedly at the Jonin wearing spandex. On the shore of a beach with a colorful sunset, Guy exclaimed, Yosh. That's exactly right. While striking his nice guy pose with two thumbs and surrounded by the silhouettes of a hugging Madara and Sasuke, as well as a hugging Lee and Guy, Might Guy had managed to conjure the most terrifying delusion imaginable. With a horrified expression on his face, Ao exclaimed, can't look away. Too much spandex. Ga, was Konkuru's cry as he wanted to tear his eyes out. The observing samurai of Mifune had all assumed the fetal position, while other faces were frozen in horror. Madara just stared around in bewilderment, trying to understand why he was unable to break the technique. This one time, I'm banking on the power of youth, Naruto said with a focused expression beneath his sunglasses. Since Madara's appearance, the Raikage's mind has been fixed on a singular goal, and he was unaware of everything else. With his lightning armor bursting to life, the A roared, you think you can hunt down my brother like some kind of animal? I'll break your skull. As he accelerated, the Kumo leader appeared to disappear from view. He materialized in front of Madara, blowing out a portion of the wall and railing behind him with his fist as it went straight through the Uchiha. Madara, who was still perplexed by Guy's method, never even looked at him. You see what I saw, don't you? Naruto gave Kakashi his signature. Nothing more than what we already understand, Kakashi retorted, it's definitely high-level time-space manipulations. Pure speed isn't the solution if the Raikage can't reach him. Although I'd like to try more tests, I doubt I'll be able to get more than one shot before he discovers what's happening. Naruto thought, I need him here as long as possible, and that might spook him off. As he twisted away with Sasuke, Madara said, well that's. I think that yeah, I got nothing. Excuse me for a moment, I must put this tool in place of safekeeping so it can be repaired. Karen sighed with relief as she emerged from her hiding place. Sasuke's words just moments ago only confirmed what she already knew would happen if he got mixed up with Madara. She seized the opportunity to flee when Madara took Sasuke away and the cages became distracted, but a moment later, Madara appeared beside her and twisted away once more, stealing her freedom. XXXX. Madara thought about throwing the dead weight in his pocket dimension, but he didn't currently need Sasuke anymore. Instead, he decided to hide them in a base. A moment later, Black Zetsu, Jugo, and Suigetsu appeared, and he disappeared. Madara returned with a white Zetsu clone that began recharging their chakra supply using its spores. Before he twisted away once more, Madara commanded, rest up for now, you four are done for the moment. Unable to comprehend the seemingly new Naruto he had met, Sasuke muttered, how could he have become like this? That couldn't have been Naruto. There's no way the Naruto I know could have gained such incredible fighting power in such a short period of time, not without relying on the Kyuubi anyway. Karen was starting to see the bigger picture and realize how dangerous the game Sasuke was playing was. The first was Madara, who always seemed to get Sasuke to do what he wanted by the way he treated them. Both the invasion of the Hokage summit and the initial pursuit of the eight-tailed beasts were suicide missions. When it was revealed that Danzo wasn't even the Hokage, the summit's events made it abundantly evident. When she first couldn't find them, she had her doubts, but when Madara arrived at the last minute, she realized that he had known this all along. The fact that Sasuke was only a pawn in this man's high-stakes chess game was not apparent to him, and he didn't care. How much longer until he persuades you to oppose me? You were prepared to leave Suigetsu and Jugo behind. If I hadn't been helpful to you at the time, would you have still given me the same? She looked at the teenager with the dark hair and thought. The redhead knew the answer to that question in her heart, she just didn't want to admit it. XXXA yelled, bring back the Uchiha. I'm not done with that asshole, as Madara made a comeback at the top. With a wave of his hand, Madara said, maybe some other time, we have more important things to discuss. Gaara asked, why is Sasuke Uchiha so important to you, anyway? As Madara explained, a Sharingan with the ability to activate Susanoo is pretty rare. I couldn't pass up having someone with that kind of power in my control. I sent him here for the purpose of training his eyes up further by combating the 5 cages. I didn't expect the 9 tails to show up and almost kill him. I hoped he might have weakened you enough so I could take you hostage, but it seems that was too much to expect. Tsunade deadpanned, that is by far the most half-assed plan I have ever heard of. And why is that? Madara asked. The brunette Hokage nodded. You act as if Sasuke was as powerful as Pain was. Pain almost single-handedly defeated the entire village of Konoha. Sasuke Uchiha is probably barely at the level needed to put up a decent fight against a single cage. You expect him to give the five of us a good enough fight to take all of us all as hostages? We've been following the movements and actions of that brat very carefully outside of Deidara. He has yet to defeat an S-class opponent in an evenly matched fight from what our intelligence found. Even that was a close call. Orochimaru was sick, dying old man when he defeated him. To cap it off, we now know that Itachi died due to an incurable illness. Nothing in his track record of skills lends credence to him be able to accomplish the task you sent him here for. On top of that, he failed to capture the 8 tails for you, said Naruto. Just because he acquired a new level of Sharingan doesn't make him qualified to take on the best of the best. Fancy eyes don't make you a top-flight shinobi. He laughed when Madara asked, then what do they make you? Naruto deadpanned, an asshole. Believe me, I know. Madara sighed, meh, even if it was long shot, taking the 5 cages hostage was too good an opportunity to pass up. What could you possibly gain from taking the 5 cages hostage? He asked, perplexed. The Mizukage. Madara casually replied, I just want my Moon's Eye plan to be executed smoothly. But, first there is something else that has me curious. Tell me, Naruto, how did you turn Nagato against me? Naruto laughed. You act as if you had him in control in the first place. Nagato never viewed himself as beneath you. You were simply a means to his own ends. He was not as fragile as he led you to believe. He simply could not see another alternative to achieving his goals. You could have just said you weren't going to tell me, the man wearing the spiral mask said, rolling his invisible eye. You asked your question, now let me ask mine. What really happened the night of the Kyuubi massacre? Naruto said, ignoring him and ready to demand his own answers. Madara rested his hands on his heads while saying, Konoha was in possession of my favorite pet, and that was simply the opportune time for me to take it back and exact revenge on the village. I didn't count on the Yondaime being able to best me that night, though broke my control over the Kyuubi and forced me to flee. It was a good thing he was forced to give up his life to save the beast and seal it again. He may have become a major problem in the future. Naruto shot back, you have been better off leaving my father alive. Trust me, I'm a much bigger headache. The ancient Uchiha muttered, so you are. Madara then described to the tale how he fueled rumors that the Uchiha clan might have been behind the Kyuubi's release, which led to the village beginning to shun them. He then fanned the clan's flames of discontent over this alleged injustice. When the village met Itachi and was on the verge of civil war, everything came to a head. He explained to the young shinobi how he had wreaked havoc in the Mist Village with their civil war and how Konoha, already weakened by the Kyuubi attack, would destroy itself to keep the village intact. Itachi took the audacious decision to sacrifice his clan's slaughter to Madara. Then Kakashi said, how shrewd of you. Not only did you get revenge on your own clan, but you deprived Konoha of its next genius shinobi after you already caused the death of the 4th. You did all this to prevent a civil war that you caused. Why go through all this trouble? What's your endgame? Madara cracked a grin. My endgame? It's quite ingenious really. My goal is to achieve a complete form, in which everything is united. Everything will become one with me. You see, long ago, when the Sage of Six Paths was still alive, he stopped a monster of a great, near-apocalyptic proportions. This monster was called the Jubi. Jubi? A 10-tailed beast? You must be bluffing? I didn't believe it? Madara raised his eyebrows. I assure you, I am not. The Jubi was a monster that was the origin of the tailed beasts. The Sage of Six Paths sealed the Jubi into his own body and acted as the very first Jinchuriki. He then sealed the body of the 10-tailed beast up on the moon which he created himself. On his deathbed, the Sage of Six Paths was worried that the Jubi shall roam again. Therefore, he divided the chakra of the 10-tailed beast to 9 different beasts on their own, known today as the Biju. My plan is simple. I will collect every tailed beast there is and fuse them together and seal it in me, and with that power, I will ascend to the moon and fuse with the Jubi to project the most powerful genjutsu, Mugen Tsukuyomi. With that, there will be neither conflict nor wars. All within that illusion shall fall into a dream-like trance. I think it's a rather brilliant plan. Brilliant? You threaten the world with slavery and death, and you call it brilliant? Mei shook her head incredulously. Scowling, you arrogant bastard, I can see right through the one major flaw in your plan. Even if we served you up the Biju on a silver platter, it would fail. In agreement, Gaara nodded and said, he's right, it's doomed from the start. And just how will it fail? Madara asked him in jest. Replied, not just anyone can become a Jinchuriki. Just look at all the failed attempts of creating containers for the different tailed beasts. The best containers were always young people, children or newborns, With still developing chakra coils, eventually the strength of the container would grow to match the strength of the beast, enabling the host to subdue it. You are not powerful enough to contain the beast. Kakashi went on, subduing the Kyuubi with your Sharingan is one thing, but trying to control the beast's power when it is tied your body is an entirely different scenario. The beast will put up a fight and try to influence you. You say the Sage of the Six Paths only possessed the power to hold the Jubi within himself. You are obviously much weaker than him. You're much weaker than you were in your prime. If you tried to seal the Jubi into your body, you will be destroyed and unleash the beast on the rest of the world. Tell me what you are really planning, because there is no way I'm buying that crock of bullshit, asked Naruto. After standing still for a few seconds without replying, Madara shrugged. Naruto yelled, "You old fool. You enjoy keeping us all in suspense like this. I want you to tell me what you're really planning, start talking." Madara started, "Well," and then abruptly shook his head, "No, it's pointless. Look, you senile old man, I have no intention of asking you again. You answer me right now," Naruto said, refusing to accept no. Madara brushed him off with a casual, "As I said before, it's pointless. You could never understand the true nature of my plans. You pathetic wretch has been excuse for a ninja. If you let the Jew be free, it will be the end of all of us. And you don't even care. You can't pass up a half-assed chance to play God." The young sage realized abruptly, realizing that Madara's silence was all the response he needed. "You can't be that insane, to possibly bring about the end of the world just so you can play God?" Onoki asked, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Believe what you will hand over the 8 tails and 9 tails, unless you want to face war," said Madara, dismissively waving his hand. Tsunade scowled and said, "If you think we'll give you complete control of this world, you really have lost your mind." Mei nodded with agreement. "What is left for mankind if we can't strive for our hopes and dreams? I've seen the damage you've caused in my own village firsthand. I'd never entrust anything to your vile greedy hands. You are a delusional madman, the greatest criminal this world has ever known," declared Gaara. "We do not negotiate with criminals. There will be no compromises for you, no compromises and no mercy." "So, that's how you want to play it, huh?" Madara asked, tilting his head to the side. A smirk appeared on Naruto's face as a soft giggle. "It was an asinine request anyway. You're demanding the 5 cages to hand over something they don't have. The power of the Kyuubi was entrusted to me and me alone. No one else has a say in what I do with it. I don't care if the whole world turns against me and I have to carry the battle against you on my shoulders alone. You'll never get the Kyuubi from me. I'll die and drag it down to hell with me before that happens. As long as you lose, I win." Madara laughed. "I've been plotting this all out before you were a twinkle in your grandfather's eye. Boy, if you think you can beat me, go ahead and try." Naruto challenged. "Why wait? Let's settle this right here and right now." "Patience, my young friend. Your fated battle is not with me, but with Sasuke. As I faced Hashirama in battle, you shall face Sasuke," responded Madara. A grunted in agreement as Naruto shot back, "I don't give a rat's ass about Sasuke. Whoever the hell wants to fight him can have him. I'm sure the Raikage wouldn't mind cracking that bastard's skull a few times." Madara nodded. "You will not avoid this battle. You and Sasuke will fight. It is inevitable. You are the Senju representative, and Sasuke is the representative of the Uchiha, like the sons of the Rakudo Sennin, the elder, who inherited the eyes of the sage, the power of his chakra and spiritual energy, and the younger, who inherited his body, his willpower and physical energy. You two will fight on 2 sides. It's your fate." Smiled, "Fate. Destiny. If that's what you're basing all your plans on, then you've already lost. You should just surrender right here and right now. You can't win. You know, you're truly a disgrace. Been alive for over a century and yet you still possess the temperament of a foolish child," said the Tsuchikage. "If pretending that I care what you think makes you feel better, then go right ahead," Madara said with a snort of laughter. After taking off his sage cape once more and taking a few deep breaths to regain his focus, Naruto whispered to himself, "All right. You got this, Naruto. Steady now. This is it." Everyone's eyes were drawn to the weighted garment's huge crash, and someone said, "This one is for you, Dad. Arrow Sennin as well. I'm too far gone to fail now." X flashback as Gamabunta watched Naruto keep pushing his boundaries. He took another drag from his pipe since the brat put in so much training. He thought that keeping an eye on him was the least he could do, particularly considering the crazy routines he subjected himself to currently. He had a couple clones practicing their control over gravity by amplifying the gravity in the small training area he'd marked off, on top of the heavily weighted clothing the blonde was wearing. Gamakichi hopped down beside his father and muttered, "He's been at it for hours. Isn't it time for a break?" Gamabunta let out a snort of "You know how hard-headed he is, just like his godfather and his father that way training until they collapse as the only way they operate." Dropping to one knee, Naruto was panting and had several beads of sweat streaming down his face to match the variety of cuts and bruises all over his body. His flak jacket and weighted sage cape were torn and scuffed in multiple places when he looked up at the sky. A mirage of Madara materialized, bringing his mental troubles to life. The illusion with the orange spiral mask taunted, "What's the matter, Naruto? Growing weary already? Looks like the nine tails will be returned to me soon enough, ha ha ha." "I don't fear you, Madara," said Naruto, tightly clenching his teeth. His chakra cloak flared to life with a guttural roar, and a shadow clone materialized in front of him in the same state. Before hurrying him and fighting him hand to hand, the clone grunted. The copy and the original were evenly matched, exchanging powerful blows for a few seconds before leaping back to give each other space. With identical glares, they rushed forward into a head-on collision with the jutsu, forming a Rasengan as the techniques clashed and they tried to outmaneuver each other. It was a standoff. Both spheres eventually became unstable, which led to an explosion before the clone vanished in smoke. They both grunted in agony as they were knocked back on their asses in different directions. Naruto was clambering back up to his feet in a matter of seconds, saying, "All right, round 2. End flashback. The sage's white chakra cloak came to life with a powerful roar. He brought his hands together in front of his body and leaned slightly over the waist. The daring display piqued Madara's curiosity a little. "Show me the strength of your will of fire, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto roared again, boosting the strength and intensity of his chakra cloak as a white sphere of chakra materialized in his hands. "You're making the same mistaken assumptions, Sasuke, that I thought you would have figured it out by now, but I guess that was just too much to ask, so allow me to reintroduce myself," he said. Kakashi used his chakra to hold onto the ground while protecting his face with his arm. Naruto's chakra was so strong that it forced everyone else nearby to stand back. The copy ninja thought, "His pure chakra strength is just incredible." "Ah, that's right, you were going by a new moniker now. All that chakra you're building up is quite impressive, Sennin, so just what exactly is it you plan to do with it?" asked Madara. "You know, that's a really good question," Naruto shot back, grinning. "Whatever he's planning on doing is way too big for an enclosed space like this," Kankuro yelled. Tamari said, "He's crazy, but he's not that crazy, right?" Gaara remained silent and relied solely on his intuition. Although Naruto had previously warned him, it was difficult to read the blonde's thoughts because of the dark sunglasses covering his eyes. Now Madara, Naruto's expression suddenly twisted into a frown. The sphere in his hands flared, releasing a blinding flash of bright light. Hikari Tekiden, flash grenade. Instead of releasing a powerful destructive technique as most of them had anticipated. The intense weight that suddenly fell on everyone in the room was obscured by the bright light, making it impossible to see the hidden ceiling arrays on the center of the walls, ceiling, and floor. Activate. Madara's exposed Sharingan was momentarily rendered inactive by the intense light before the Uchiha could flee through time-space migration. Naruto's enormous increase in gravity had time to seize him. So far, so good, Kakashi thought. The camouflaged shadow clones were able to place the tags in the proper locations because of Guy's distraction. Darui gasped, "This pressure, what is it?" She wheezed, "I can't even move an inch, it's hard to breathe." The Raikage grunted, "If you two can't handle this, you need to step up your training." If they had been strong enough to move, the two would have shook their heads. Madara jeered, "Is this your grand plan? Add little extra weight to make it hard to move?" In response, Naruto increased the gravity even further. The funny thing about intense gravity, not only does it make it really hard to move even muscle, it slows down everything, including your chakra. He said. Almost everyone who had been standing fell to their knees as a result of this. Madara wheezed, "Yes, but this is nothing more than a stalemate. You can't crush me without crushing everyone else in here. You don't have the heart to do something like that." "Who said anything about me providing the final blow?" smiled Naruto. After exerting himself, Naruto abruptly fell to his knees, exposing Kakashi behind him with a thin shell of his condensed chakra. The blonde was protecting himself from the gravitational pull of the room while his silver-haired sensei rested a hand on his shoulder. Kakashi revealed his Mangekyo Sharingan and said, "So, how about it, Naruto? Shall I grant him the coup de grace?" Naruto smiled broadly and said, "By all means. He is far more capable than his track record suggests," Madara said with a grimace. "Definitely a well-played hand. I might really be in some serious trouble if they had another way to kill me." In order to create a barrier that would send Madara's chest away, Kakashi activated Kamui. Because of Madara's own Sharingan, he was uncertain of the potential consequences of attempting to remove his head, so he targeted the other main vital organ and a few more for precaution. They had a great, nearly infallible plan. They might have been successful if it had been anyone other than Madara. Madara was unable to open the portal to move between dimensions because Naruto was holding onto the gravity, but this was rendered inconsequential when Kakashi's method revealed the folds of time and space. The separation of whatever was inside Kakashi's Kamui barrier during his escape was Madara's only issue. However, the Uchiha foresaw this and remained motionless. Once Naruto's gravity technique was activated, he didn't move until the very last second, when the portal opened and Kakashi's barrier's target was moved to his left arm. Knowing they had failed, Naruto let go of the gravity as Madara's entire body began to warp away. If I didn't feel like Akatsuchi just sat on me, I'd give them a big pat on the back, Kuretsuchi grumbled. Don't get your hopes up just yet, Onoki said, squinting his eyes at the location where Madara had just disappeared, ignoring the throbbing pain in his hip. Breathing heavily from Kamui's weariness, Kakashi muttered, "That wasn't supposed to happen." Naruto scowled and clenched his fists in frustration as he stared silently at the location where Madara disappeared. Chojuro muttered, "Man, that was one hell of plan they cooked up." Mei frowned and said, "Don't be fooled, it is not over, that man is not dead." "Damn you, Madara," sneered Naruto, exposing his canine-like fangs. Madara reappeared just as the Uchiha's signature spiral-like time-space fold ripples appeared. Even though the Akatsuki mastermind had lost his left arm, his demeanor was uncannily composed. "I'll admit that was an excellent attempt, however, the Kamui cannot kill me," laughed Madara. "Now are you two through playing games?" Tamari and Kankuro were shell-shocked. Tamari muttered, "They do all that, and only managed to take off his arm? An arm he doesn't even seem to miss." Her brother continued, "And that didn't even faze him. How do you beat a guy like that?" As he approached the Konoha duo that had stolen his arm, Madara said coolly, "Your little tag team performance was quite amusing, but I'm afraid I have run out of patience." When Naruto realized that Kakashi was Madara's target, his eyes grew wide. "Move it, sensei. Now!" The sage yelled out. Madara appeared in front of Naruto before anyone could even flinch, punching the blonde until he fell face first to the ground. Madara turned to face Kakashi and muttered, "All too easy. I could rip out that troublesome eye of yours in fair exchange for the inconvenience of losing my arm. However, your Sharingan eye is so inferior to the other Sharingan eyes under my control, there is no point in taking it, so, just for you. The price has gone up. The road of life ends here for you, Kakashi. You have reached a dead end. Goodbye." The ancient Uchiha disappeared and then resurfaced with his remaining arm extended and pierced through the upper right part of Kakashi's chest cavity. "Oh!" exclaimed Kakashi as the Uchiha instinctively flexed his hand, which was now reaching out the opposite side of Kakashi's body. The wound released a huge spray of blood. "No, you fiend," Guy said, horrified by the scene. "You can stop laying it on so thick. Why would you do such a foolish thing anyway?" Madara scowled beneath his mask as Kakashi kept screaming out in agony. His words baffled everyone until Kakashi rose and blew smoke, revealing a smirking Naruto who had been struck just below his right collarbone. Kakashi lay on the spot where Naruto had been lying. Naruto coughed up a little blood and grunted, "Because that old grandma we call the Hokage hits 100 times harder than you." The following moment would be recorded in future generations' history books. The blonde sage laughed, "You know, I liked you better when you were less serious, so let but smile back on beneath that mask. You probably heard this one before. Hell, you might have even came up with it, but it's classic. An Anbu captain and a Hunter Nin are taking a piss, noticing that Hunter Nin goes to leave without washing up. The captain says, 'In the regular Anbu, they teach us to wash our hands.' The Hunter Nin turns back to the captain with a smirk and says, 'In the Hunter Corps, they teach us not to piss on our hands,' was the joke that Madara and a few other men in the room couldn't help but finish out of instinct with Naruto. Due to the joke, some people missed the next moment because it was so abrupt, brutal, and quick. Naruto took Madara by the shoulders and gave him a vicious headbutt. Even though his arm was protruding from his chest, Madara's arm was pushed back through his body by a headbutt so strong that it sent him crashing into the wall nearby. The sudden turn of events stunned all of the samurai and shinobi. The Mizukage used the well-worn cliché, "Now that's what I call using your head," to sum up what everyone was thinking. As he picked himself up, Madara muttered, "You really are an interesting guy. Consider this my declaration of the Fourth Shinobi World War. The next time we meet, it will be on the battlefield. No, if you'll excuse me, I need to reattach an arm." The masked man gave a strange salute and disappeared into the night. After Madara left, everyone took a moment to collect themselves and get back into some sort of order. When Tsunade arrived to tend to Naruto's wound, she discovered that the sage was already treating it with a concentrated outburst of the Kyuubi's chakra. Ultimately, Naruto sat down in front of the Hokage's seat, which was located behind the wall. He and Kakashi are both awaiting the effects of the food pills that the Hokage gave them. The Fourth Great Shinobi War. My goodness, what now? Sighed the Tsuchikage. Gaara said, a 5-village shinobi alliance must be formed. It's the only way to combat the power of the 7 Biju. Tsunade sighed. That's fine in theory, but the Raikage has already voiced his displeasure with forming such an alliance. He sighed, no harm has come to my brother, even so, I will not allow the Akatsuki to have their way any longer. They have taken too much already. Let's form an alliance to settle this threat as quickly as possible. The old Tsuchikage found it difficult to understand the statement, all 5 villages working together. I guess drastic times call for drastic measures. If we're in agreement about the alliance, the first measure of business is to decide what we are going to do about the Kyuubi and Hachibi. We cannot permit Madara to obtain to Kyuubi and Hachibi. To prevent his Moon's Eye operation, it seems prudent that we located the Hachibi and hide both of them away from him. Mei offered. You're right, protecting them is a vital object in this war, said Gaara. I suspect one of the reasons he has declared war is to lure out the remaining Jinchuriki. Tsunade nodded her head. Don't fall into his trap. You can't fight a war. Playing not to lose, he mostly intended to create a state of panic in order for us to hide the Jinchuriki away someplace. Then all he would need to do is discover the location and ambush it while our forces are spread across the front lines. In agreement, Onoki nodded. Not counting the Hachibi and Kyuubi as valuable part of our military forces would be foolish. They would be invaluable in combating whatever Madara has up his sleeve for the other 7 Biju under his control. A face covered in sweat. My brother is not the type of person to follow along with any sort of plans we might prepare. He could bring chaos to the battlefield. You think that knucklehead is going to be any better? Just look at what he pulled off now, replied Tsunade. We're better off having them somewhere where we can keep a close eye on them. He grumbled. When he asked why I would do such a foolish thing, he wasn't referring to me saving Kakashi. You idiot. That just makes it worse. You could have used a shadow clone, but you let yourself almost lose lung just to hit him. Tsunade said, narrowing her eyes and using the nearest object she could find to nudge her fellow blonde in the forehead. Why would you do something so absolutely insane? Tamari asked, giving him a disbelieving glance. Kankuru sighed. This is Naruto we're talking about. He probably did it just so he could headbutt him. Mifune responded, let's get back to the topic at hand. Here before us here is the First Great Shinobi Alliance. Its power too is a huge unknown quantity also. We samurai will take part in this battle. Madara is taking a great risk himself by coming to the negotiating table like this. It would seem that the situation is not entirely in his favor. Naruto let out a growl of annoyance. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Madara would not reveal himself to world like this without some ulterior motive behind it. He knew no one would negotiate with him, and he knew we would be going to war. The man thinks 10,000 steps ahead. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security. Kakashi expressed his disapproval. You can't treat this like a normal war. This isn't a matter of lining up as many forces as possible. The Akatsuki rely on shinobi of monstrous capabilities. They formerly possessed a single shinobi who could wipe out a single village. The only reason I'm alive today is because we possessed a shinobi on our side of equal monstrous capability. Let's also not forget that the last great ninja war was essentially decided by a single man with the capability to destroy an army. Onoki reiterated his standpoint. I'd like to put our best foot forward. The various Jinchuriki were captured because they were allowed or forced into isolation. Repetition of the same practices would be foolish. I'll concede this point if we agree upon the pair of containers being forced to shadow one of us at all times. Mei made the suggestion. According to Tsunade, I'll agree to that. Gaara grunted and said, very well, I agree. A said, that's fine. If that point is agreed upon, then we need to determine who will lead this alliance. Mifune said, who among you is the most qualified to lead? You were the one airing a laundry list of our faults earlier, Onoki said, rolling his eyes in frustration. Kakashi interrupted Naruto as he was about to say, Naruto, you just got promoted. I don't think they're going to let you run the alliance. Naruto yelled, I wasn't going to do that. I was going to point out that the Akatsuki has employed high-ranking missing ninja from only 4 of the 5 villages. The inner workings and village secrets of only one place has not been compromised. That village is Kumo. It is the most secure. Besides, just look at the Raikage compared to everybody else. They're all scary in their own way, but he's only one at first glance that makes you think, man, he might just reach out and crush my head like a grape with his bare hands. Plus he looks like some sort of world champion fighter. That's got to be worth something. What? He asked when he saw Kakashi grinning at him. He looked forward and saw that everyone was staring at him and listening to their brief conversation. but that they were all silent for the time being. His combination of brilliant insight and outright nonsense baffled most. Mifune laughed. World champion appearance aside, I do believe Raikage Dono is a good choice, especially now that we know the Eight Tails is still alive and he has regained his composure. He can control his brother the Eight Tails and already seems to have the respect of the Nine Tails. Those two are a major key to our success. You all right with that, Tsuchikage, Mizukage, and Kazekage? Tsunade asked. Gaara said, I've got no problem. There's no time for arguments, I'll trust the Raikage, Mei replied. Onoki smiled and confirmed, no issues, here. We'll all have to put aside our differences and cooperate. If the shinobi world ends, then I'll have no one to fight with. I guess we have to go inform those Daiwaimo fellas now. You know, one of these days, I'm going to figure out how to stop running my big mouth, killed Naruto. Is that right? Kakashi asked with a laugh. Naruto joked, I got no chance in hell, right? By shrugging, Kakashi said, yeah, it's probably genetic. Hey, look on the bright side, at least, I'm not addicted to reading porn books, Naruto said. Leaning back and closing his eyes, seeing that everyone was listening to them once more, Kakashi muttered, you really should get that checked out. Naruto grinned and said, no, I think I'm alright with it.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.